They said she was the perfect wife. Silent, elegant, obedient. They were wrong. Tonight, Elara Vance will shatter every lie Adrian Vale ever told about her, starting with the one she told herself. She's not the polished ornament on his arm. She's the ghost that haunts the underground racing world, and he's about to find out what happens when you cage a woman who was born to burn rubber and break rules. Stay until the end to see how this street racer becomes a crime queen. Drop a like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The chandeliers threw light like broken glass across the ballroom. Elara Vance stood perfectly still, champagne flute balanced between gloved fingers, smile fixed in place like something carved from marble. Around her, the underworld's elite circulated in their expensive suits and blood-bought jewelry, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, making deals that would ruin lives by morning. She'd stopped listening to their conversations months ago, maybe years. Time moved differently when you were suffocating. Mrs. Vale, a thick-necked man with too many rings, approached, his breath already sour with whiskey. You look radiant tonight. Elara's smile didn't waver. Thank you, Mr. Kozlov. Your husband's a lucky man. His eyes crawled down her dress, midnight blue silk that cost more than her first car. A woman like you, so refined, so quiet, so dead inside, she thought, but her face remained serene. If you'll excuse me. She moved past him with practiced grace, her heels clicking against marble that probably came from some Italian quarry, shipped here at exorbitant cost because Adrian Vale didn't do anything halfway. The ballroom opened onto a balcony overlooking the estate's gardens. Elara slipped outside, grateful for air that wasn't thick with cologne and criminal intent. The night was cold enough to bite through silk, but she welcomed it. Anything to feel something real. Below, security guards patrolled the perimeter with earpieces and concealed weapons. Beyond the walls, the city sprawled in neon and shadow, a world she used to know, used to own, before she made the mistake of falling in love with a man who collected beautiful things and locked them away. 3 years. 3 years since Adrian Vale walked into Marcus Chen's garage where she worked, blood on his collar and desperation in his voice. His car had taken bullets. He needed someone who could fix it fast, no questions asked. She'd been elbow deep in an engine, grease under her fingernails, hair tied back with a rag. She remembered looking up at him, this sharply dressed stranger with cold eyes and colder reputation, and thinking, trouble. She'd been right. But there'd been something else in his face that night, something raw and almost human when she'd gotten his car running in under an hour. Admiration. Not the condescending kind men usually gave her, but genuine respect. You're good, he'd said, handing her twice what she'd asked for. Better than good. I know. He'd laughed. Actually laughed. Then he'd asked her name. 6 months later, they were married. 6 months after that, she realized marriage to Adrian Vale meant becoming someone else entirely. The woman in the grease-stained coveralls who could strip an engine blindfolded? Dead. The street racer who'd dominated the underground circuit under the name Nix, who'd made grown men weep when she left them eating her dust? Erased. In their place, Mrs. Adrian Vale, silent, elegant, perfect, empty. There you are. Elara's spine stiffened. She didn't turn around. I needed air. Adrian's footsteps were soft against the balcony stone. He moved beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody that probably cost more than her old apartment's monthly rent. Kozlov was looking for you, he said. I told him you weren't feeling well. Thoughtful. Elara. His voice held a note of something, irritation, concern. With Adrian, it was always hard to tell. You're being difficult tonight. I'm being perfect. She finally looked at him, her smile sharp enough to cut. Isn't that what you wanted? He studied her face, his expression unreadable. Adrian Vale at 42 was the kind of handsome that came with power and violence, sharp jaw, calculating eyes, silver threading through dark hair at his temples. He wore authority like other men wore cologne. I wanted you, he said quietly. No. Elara turned back to the gardens. You wanted the idea of me, the polished version, the one who stands beside you at parties and doesn't embarrass you in front of your associates. That's not fair, isn't it? Silence stretched between them, loaded with 3 years of things unsaid. Finally, Adrian sighed. I have business to attend to. Marcus Chen's waiting in the study. Don't disappear for too long. He left without touching her. Once he would have kissed her temple, his hand lingering at the small of her back. Now they moved around each other like strangers. Elara waited until his footsteps faded before she moved. But she didn't go back inside. Instead, she drifted along the balcony toward the east wing, where French doors led to Adrian's private study. She shouldn't eavesdrop. She knew that. She did it anyway. The doors were cracked open just enough. Inside, cigar smoke drifted in lazy clouds. Marcus Chen's voice carried first. Marcus, who'd given her her first real job, who taught her everything about engines and nothing about men like Adrian Vale. The shipment arrives Tuesday, Marcus was saying. Chen's handling the logistics, but we'll need your signature on the transfer papers. Not a problem, Adrian's voice, casual and cold. What about the other matter? Your wife? Elara's blood went still. She's been asking questions again, Marcus said, about the businesses, where the money comes from. She'll stop. Adrian's tone carried dismissal. Elara knows better than to push. You sure about that? Because she doesn't look happy, boss, and unhappy wives have a way of becoming problems. She's not a problem. She's a decoration. Adrian's laugh was soft, cruel, beautiful, elegant, completely useless for anything beyond looking good at my side. She knows which world she married into. She won't risk what she has. Something inside Elara's chest cracked. Not her heart, that had been breaking slowly for months. This was something else, something structural. The last weight-bearing beam of whatever she'd been holding on to. Decoration, useless. Still, Marcus pressed, maybe you should... I should what? The woman can barely change a light bulb without calling maintenance. She's not a threat, Marcus. She's exactly what I made her. Elara stepped back from the door. Her hands weren't shaking. They should have been, but they weren't. Instead, she felt something cold and clear settling over her. The same feeling she used to get before a race, when the light turned green and everything else disappeared except the road and the speed and the absolute certainty of who she was. She walked back through the ballroom. People tried to catch her eye, but she didn't stop. Didn't smile. Just moved with purpose toward the service hallway that led to the garage. The estate's garage held Adrian's collection, 12 cars, each worth more than some houses. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, a vintage Aston Martin that he never drove because it was too valuable. But tucked in the back corner, covered by a tarp and forgotten, sat a 1970 Dodge Charger that Adrian had won in a card game 2 years ago. He'd called it a piece of junk and left it to gather dust. Elara pulled off the tarp. Dust motes danced in the fluorescent light. The Charger was beautiful, not in the pristine, untouchable way of Adrian's other cars, but in the way of something built to move. The body was matte black, scarred with primer patches and old dings. Someone had modified it. She could tell by the lowered suspension, the aftermarket exhaust, the roll cage visible through the windows. She ran her hand along the hood. Cold metal under her palm. Real. The keys were in the lockbox above the workbench. Adrian was meticulous about security everywhere except where he didn't think it mattered. She found them easily, along with a worn leather jacket someone had left behind. Elara kicked off her heels. They'd cost $3,000. She left them on the garage floor like shed skin. The jacket smelled like oil and old leather. She shrugged it on over her silk dress, the fabric bunching awkwardly, but she didn't care. In the workbench drawer, she found a hair tie. She pulled her carefully styled hair into a rough ponytail. The Charger's door opened with a groan. She slid behind the wheel. The seat was cracked vinyl, the dashboard bare metal with aftermarket gauges. Someone had loved this car once, had poured their soul into making it fast. Elara turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, caught. The sound was glorious, a raw, violent rumble that shook through her bones. Not the refined purr of Adrian's Lamborghinis, but something hungry and alive. She sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, engine growling. Through the garage window, she could see the ballroom's lights still burning. Adrian would be finishing his meeting. Soon, he'd notice she was gone. He'd send someone to find her. Let him. Elara pressed the garage door opener. The door rose with agonizing slowness. When it was high enough, she dropped the Charger into gear and punched the accelerator. The tires screamed against concrete. Smoke billowed. The Charger launched forward like something unleashed. She didn't look back. The city's industrial district looked the same as she remembered. warehouses bleeding rust, streetlights that flickered or didn't work at all, the smell of river water and diesel fuel. It was ugly in the way that real things are ugly, marked by use and time, and people who didn't have the luxury of pretending otherwise. Elara navigated by memory, the Charger's engine note bouncing off brick walls. She'd spent 5 years here, working at Marcus Chen's garage by day, racing by night. Best 5 years of her life, before she'd mistaken Adrian Vale's attention for love. The underground racing docks occupied a stretch of abandoned waterfront, old shipping facilities that the city had forgotten and the racers had claimed. On Friday nights, they came from all over. Rich kids with their father's sports cars, professional drivers looking for side money, street racers who'd built their rides bolt by bolt, and once, a woman named Elara Vance who'd raced under the name Nix and never lost. Cars lined the access road leading to the main dock, hundreds of them, from tuned imports to American muscle to exotic supercars that had no business being here. People clustered in groups, money changing hands, engines revving in challenge. Elara rolled in slowly. The Charger drew looks, not because it was pretty, but because it wasn't. In a sea of polished chrome and candy paint, the scarred black muscle car stood out like a threat. She parked at the edge of the crowd and killed the engine. For a moment, she just sat there, hands still on the wheel. The silk dress felt ridiculous now, torn at the hem where she'd climbed into the car. The delicate fabric never meant for anything real. Nice ride. Elara looked up. A young guy leaned against her window, maybe 25, leather jacket, tribal tattoos up his neck. Behind him, his crew watched with various degrees of interest. "Thanks," she said. "You racing?" He nodded toward the main dock, where a crowd had gathered around what looked like the night's first event. "Maybe. Entry's $5,000. His smile was sharp. "Winner takes all. You got that kind of money, princess?" Princess. Because of the dress. Because she looked like someone who'd wandered in from the wrong world. Elara reached into the leather jacket's inner pocket. Adrian kept emergency cash in all his vehicles, a habit from his early days when he'd needed to disappear fast. She pulled out a roll of hundreds and counted off 50 bills without blinking. The guy's smile disappeared. "Shit, you serious? Does this look like a joke?" She handed him the money. He took it, eyes calculating now. "What's your name?" Elara paused. For 3 years, she'd been Mrs. Vale. Before that, for one beautiful year, she'd been Nix. And before that, she'd been just Elara, young, fearless, stupid enough to think she could race and fall in love, and somehow keep both. "Call me whatever you want," she said. "I'll still beat you." He laughed, genuine this time. "All right, mystery woman. Race starts in 10. You'll be in the third heat." He turned, then looked back. "Word of advice? The guy in the red Supras won the last 6 races. He's good. Probably too good for Thanks for the warning." She rolled up the window and got out. The crowd parted slightly, eyes following her. She could feel their judgment, the silk dress, her bare feet on dirty concrete, the incongruity of it all. Let them look. The main dock was a straight quarter-mile shot, ending at the water's edge. No barriers, no safety equipment, just speed and skill, and the understanding that if you went into the river, nobody was diving in after you. 3 cars lined up for the current race, a Honda Civic with a turbo kit, a BMW M3, and a Nissan GTR that looked like it cost more than the other 2 combined. The crowd pressed close, energy crackling. A woman in a crop top and ripped jeans stood at the starting line with a flashlight. She raised it high. The engine screamed, turbos whistling, exhausts popping. The light dropped. They launched. The GTR got the jump, its all-wheel drive clawing pavement. The BMW spun its rear wheels, losing traction. The Civic surged forward on turbo boost. But halfway down the dock, the GTR's driver got greedy. He crowded the Civic, trying to block. The Civic's driver jerked left to avoid contact. Too hard, too late. The car's rear end stepped out. The driver overcorrected. Physics took over. The Civic spun sideways, tires shrieking. The BMW, nowhere to go, clipped its rear quarter panel. Both cars went wide, the Civic slamming into a concrete barrier with a sound like the world ending. The GTR crossed the finish line alone. Its driver climbed out, arms raised in victory. Nobody cheered. They were all watching the Civic. After a moment, its driver kicked open the door and stumbled out, shaken but mobile. The crowd exhaled. Crashes were part of the game, but nobody wanted to see death. Elara watched the wreckage being cleared. The Civic's front end was destroyed, oil pooling beneath it. The driver sat on the ground, head in hands. She'd been there. Not the crashing part, but the losing part. That moment when you realize your ride, your money, your pride, all gone in 30 seconds of bad decisions. "Heat 3!" someone shouted. "Let's go!" Elara walked back to the Charger. 4 other cars were lining up, the red Supra the guy had mentioned, a Corvette with custom paint, a Mustang running on nitrous, and a Mitsubishi Evo that sat low and aggressive. She fired up the Charger and rolled to the line. The other drivers gave her various looks. The Supra's driver, a guy in his 30s with bleached hair and too much confidence, laughed outright. "Yo, someone's lost!" he called out. "Lady, this isn't a classic car show." His crew laughed. A few people in the crowd joined in. Elara said nothing. She just pressed the clutch, held the engine at 3,000 RPM, and waited. The Corvette's driver, older and serious, leaned out his window. "You know this is a quarter-mile run, right? That boat's got, what, a 30-year-old engine?" 40, Elara said. "Can it even break 100? Guess we'll find out." The woman with the flashlight approached. "Everyone clear on the rules? First to the end wins. If you go in the water, that's your problem. Understood?" Nods all around. "Kill your engines." 5 engines died. The crowd quieted. In the sudden silence, Elara could hear the river lapping against concrete, someone's stereo playing bass-heavy music, her own heartbeat steady and slow. The woman raised the flashlight. Elara's hands found their positions, right hand on the wheel, left on the shifter, feet balanced on clutch and gas. Muscle memory from 1,000 races, 1,000 nights when she'd been someone who mattered. The world narrowed to this: the light, the road, the finish line. The light dropped. Elara dumped the clutch and floored the accelerator. The Charger's rear tires exploded into smoke. The engine's roar drowning out everything else. The car squatted, weight transferring, then launched forward like a missile. The Supra got a better start, its modern launch control perfect and efficient. But the Charger had something the others didn't: pure, brutal torque. The old V8 pulled hard through first gear, second gear, the speedometer needle climbing with violence. The Corvette surged alongside her, its driver's face tight with concentration. Behind them, the Mustang and Evo jockeyed for position. But the Supra was pulling away. Its driver had been right to be confident. The car was fast, modified to perfection, and he knew how to drive it. Halfway down the dock, Elara sat in second place. Respectable for a first run. Enough to get her money back, maybe. Decoration. Useless. Adrian's words echoed in her skull. Elara's jaw tightened. Her hand moved to the shifter. The Charger had a secret. She'd felt it in the engine's note, seen it in the aftermarket gauges. Someone had built this car for more than street cruising. They'd built it to fly. She dropped her foot to the floor. The Charger had a second gas pedal hidden beneath the first, a nitrous oxide system, probably installed by whoever'd owned it before Adrian won it and forgot it. The system engaged with a hiss and a scream. The acceleration was violent. The world blurred. The Charger rocketed forward like someone had lit a fire under it, engine howling, tires clawing pavement with desperate fury. The Corvette fell away. The Mustang became a memory. The Supra's driver saw her coming in his mirror. She watched his eyes widen, watched him jam his own throttle harder. Too late. Elara pulled alongside him with 20 yards to go. Their cars ran door to door, engines screaming in harmony. The finish line rushed at them. Just the edge of the dock, the black water beyond, nowhere to stop. The Supra's driver glanced at her. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Then Elara shifted one last time and the Charger surged ahead. She crossed the line first by half a car length. The crowd erupted. Elara didn't celebrate. She just let off the gas, pumped the brakes, and brought the Charger to a controlled stop. Behind her, the other drivers were doing the same. The Supra's driver staring at her like she'd just materialized from thin air. She killed the engine. Sat there for a moment, hands still on the wheel, adrenaline singing through her veins. This was real. This was who she was. Not the ornament in Adrian Vale's collection, not the decoration. This. She climbed out of the Charger. The crowd pressed close, shouting questions, congratulations, challenges for another race. The woman with the flashlight pushed through, a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. "Winner's take," she said, handing over a brick of cash. 25 grand. Not bad for 30 seconds of work. Elara took the money. It felt heavy, real. "You racing again?" someone called out. "Maybe." "What's your name?" She opened her mouth to answer, then she saw him. Adrian Vale stood at the edge of the crowd, his suit jacket gone, his tie loosened. He looked wrong here, too clean, too polished, like a knife at a gunfight. Their eyes met across 50 feet of concrete and humanity. His face was unreadable. The crowd was still buzzing, still asking questions, but Elara couldn't hear them anymore. There was just Adrian, just the weight of his stare, just the question hanging between them. What now? She'd shattered the illusion. The perfect wife, the quiet ornament, gone, replaced by this. By grease and speed and the woman she'd been before he tried to reshape her into something acceptable. Adrian started walking toward her. The crowd parted for him. They didn't know who he was, but they recognized power when they saw it. "Elara," he said when he reached her. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "We need to talk." "No," she said. "We really don't." She turned back to the charger. Behind her, she heard Adrian's sharp inhale, the sound of him moving to follow. "You're walking away from me?" Disbelief in his voice. When did anyone walk away from Adrian Vale? Elara looked back at him. "I'm driving away. Pay attention." She got in the car and fired up the engine. Adrian's hand hit the window, flat palm against glass. "You humiliated yourself tonight," he said. "Coming here, racing like some what?" She revved the engine, drowning him out. "Finish that sentence, Adrian." He stared at her through the window. In the harsh dock lights, she could see something flickering in his expression. Not anger. Something else. Something that might have been recognition. "I didn't know you could drive like that," he said finally. Elara smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "There's a lot you don't know about me. That's what happens when you treat your wife like furniture." She dropped the charger into gear. Adrian stepped back. He was smart enough for that, at least. But before she could drive away, another car rolled up beside them. A Ferrari 488, midnight blue, pristine, worth more than most people's houses. The window came down. The driver was maybe 40, blonde, beautiful in the way that money could buy. She wore diamonds that caught the light and a smile that was all edges. "Adrian Vale," she said. "Didn't expect to see you in a place like this." Adrian's expression went carefully neutral. "Victoria." "And this must be the famous Mrs. Vale." Victoria's eyes slid to Elara, assessing. "Though you look a little different from your photos. More disheveled." Elara's hands tightened on the wheel. "Thanks. That was quite a race." Victoria's smile sharpened. "Where did Adrian's little housewife learn to drive like that?" Little housewife. "Around," Elara said flatly. "Fascinating." Victoria drummed her fingers on the Ferrari's door. "I'm hosting a private event tomorrow night, invitation only. The kind of racing that makes this," she gestured at the docks, "look like a child's birthday party. Big money, big risks. The drivers are the best on the East Coast." "Not interested," Adrian said quickly. "I wasn't asking you." Victoria's eyes stayed on Elara. "I was asking your wife if she's brave enough." The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Adrian moved closer to Elara's window. "Don't." Victoria Crane runs a different kind of operation. People get hurt at her events, sometimes killed. "And yet you know her," Elara said. Silence. "We have history," Adrian admitted. "Business history. The kind I kept from you for a reason." Victoria laughed. "Oh, Adrian, still trying to protect her? How noble." She pulled a card from her purse and flicked it through Elara's window. It landed on the passenger seat. "Tomorrow night, Pier 47, midnight, if you have the guts." The Ferrari rolled away, its engine note a refined whisper compared to the Charger's growl. Elara picked up the card. Heavy stock. Gold embossing. Just an address and a time. "Elara." Adrian's voice carried a warning she'd never heard before. "Victoria Crane is dangerous. She runs races for people who bet in the millions. Drivers have died on her courses." "So you've said." "This isn't a game. Tonight was street racing. Kids playing with cars. What Victoria does, it's professional, ruthless. You could get killed." Elara looked at him through the window. Would you care? What? If I died, would you care? Or would you just find another decoration to hang on your arm? Adrian's face went still. You can't really think. Earlier tonight, you called me useless, a ornament, completely worthless for anything beyond looking good at your side. Each word landed like a punch. So yeah, Adrian, I really think that. She saw it hit him, saw the moment he realized she'd heard everything. You were listening, he said quietly. I was. Elara, I didn't mean… Yes, you did. She tucked Victoria's card into the sun visor. That's the problem. You meant every word. She drove away before he could respond. In the rearview mirror, she watched him standing there, alone in the middle of the dock, surrounded by people who had no idea who he was. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't care what he thought. Elara didn't go back to the estate. Instead, she drove to the old neighborhood, to the apartment she'd kept even after marrying Adrian. He didn't know about it, one of the few secrets she'd managed to hold on to. A studio above a Vietnamese restaurant, rent paid in cash. Her name on the lease as E. Vance instead of Mrs. Adrian Vale. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it 3 years ago. Dust covered everything. The air was stale. But in the corner, under a tarp, sat her toolbox. Her real toolbox, not the decorative one Adrian had bought her as a wedding gift. Elara pulled off the tarp. Wrenches, sockets, specialty tools. Some she'd bought, some she'd inherited, some she'd stolen. Each one a memory. Each one proof that she'd been someone before Adrian Vale decided who she should be. She set the charger's keys on the workbench and looked around. This place was the size of Adrian's closet. The heating barely worked. The shower ran cold more often than hot. The neighbors played music until 3 a.m. It was perfect. Her phone had been buzzing steadily since she'd left the docks. Adrian calling. Adrian texting. Finally, she looked at the messages. We need to talk. Now. Answer your phone. Where are you? Elara, this is serious. She typed back, I'm somewhere you're not. Enjoy the party. Then she turned off her phone and tossed it in a drawer. Sleep didn't come easily. She lay on the futon, the same one she'd had before Adrian when her biggest concern was making rent, and stared at the ceiling. Water pipes rattled in the walls. Someone was arguing in Vietnamese downstairs. But the charger's keys sat on the workbench, catching moonlight, and Victoria Crane's card was in her jacket pocket, heavy with possibility. Morning came gray and cold. Elara woke stiff, the silk dress rumpled beyond repair. She peeled it off and threw it in the trash. In the apartment's tiny closet, she found old clothes, jeans that actually fit, a tank top, a hoodie worn soft by years of use. She looked at herself in the mirror. Without the makeup, the jewelry, the careful styling, she looked younger, harder. More like the woman who used to race under the name Nix. Her phone buzzed from the drawer. She ignored it. Instead, she went downstairs to the restaurant. The owner, Mrs. Nguyen, was the same as ever, tiny, fierce, permanently irritated by the world. You're back, Mrs. Nguyen said, not looking up from her prep work. 3 years gone. Thought you died. Not yet. Your rent's overdue. 12 months. Elara pulled out the racing winnings from last night and counted off bills. This should cover it, plus the next year. Mrs. Nguyen's eyes widened slightly. Then she scooped up the money and made it disappear into her apron. You eat, please. The pho came in a bowl the size of her head, steam rising in clouds. Elara sat at the counter and ate slowly, tasting each bite. Real food, not whatever artistic nonsense Adrian's chef prepared, foam and reduction and things arranged on the plate like abstract art. You look different, Mrs. Nguyen said, watching her. Sadder. Thanks. But also angrier. That's good. Sad alone is useless. Anger makes you do things. Elara smiled despite herself. Wise words. I'm old. I'm supposed to be wise. Mrs. Nguyen refilled her tea. The man who came looking for you, he came back. Elara's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. What man? Rich one. Expensive suit. Looked like he owned things. Mrs. Nguyen's expression soured. He said he was your husband. I told him I never heard of you. When was this? This morning, 1 hour ago. So Adrian had found her apartment. Of course he had. He hadn't built an empire by being stupid. If he comes back, Elara started. I'll tell him nothing. Mrs. Nguyen waved dismissively. I don't like men who make women look sad. After breakfast, Elara walked to the charger. It sat where she'd left it, somehow looking more at home on this cracked street than it ever had in Adrian's pristine garage. She needed to think, to plan. Victoria Crane's race was tonight, and despite Adrian's warnings, or maybe because of them, she was going. But first, the car needed work. The nitrous system had saved her last night, but it was unstable, probably installed by someone who knew enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be safe. If she was going to race against professionals, the charger needed to be perfect. She knew exactly where to go. Marcus Chen's garage looked the same as it had 3 years ago. Industrial, efficient, smelling of oil and metal shavings. The bay doors were open, revealing 3 cars in various states of repair. Elara parked the charger outside and killed the engine. Through the bay doors, she could see Marcus himself, bent over an engine block, his hands moving with familiar precision. She'd avoided this place since marrying Adrian. Too many memories, too many questions she didn't want to answer. But now she walked in like she'd never left. Marcus looked up. His expression cycled through surprise, recognition, and something else. Maybe anger, maybe disappointment. Elara Vance, he said slowly. Heard you died. Second person to say that today. You look like you've seen better days. His eyes took in her clothes, her tired face, the charger parked outside. That your ride? For now. Marcus straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. He was 60, Chinese, with hands like road maps and eyes that missed nothing. He'd taught her everything she knew about engines and most of what she knew about survival. 3 years, he said. 3 years you don't call, don't write, don't visit. I hear through the grapevine you married Adrian Vale, and suddenly you're a ghost. I'm sorry. Sorry. He laughed without humor. You were the best mechanic I had. Best racer, too. Then you threw it away for what? Money? Security? A man who treats people like property? The words stung because they were true. I made a mistake, Elara said quietly. I'm trying to fix it. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded at the charger. That the car you raced last night? News travels fast. It does when Nix comes back from the dead and smokes the dock's best drivers. His expression shifted slightly. People are talking, saying there was a woman in a black charger who drove like the devil was chasing her. The devil wasn't chasing me. I was running from him. Cryptic. Marcus walked to the charger and popped the hood. Let's see what you're working with. He examined the engine with the same focus he brought to everything. Elara stood beside him, and for a moment it was like the old days, just her and Marcus and a car that needed understanding. Decent build, Marcus said finally. Whoever modified this knew what they were doing. But this nitrous system, he tapped a line, is a disaster. Wrong jets, wrong fuel pressure. You're lucky you didn't blow the engine last night. Can you fix it? Can I? Marcus looked at her like she'd insulted him. Yes. Question is, why should I? You planning to race again? Elara pulled out Victoria Crane's card and handed it to him. Marcus's expression went dark. No, absolutely not. You know her. Everyone in the underground knows Victoria Crane. She runs death matches disguised as races. $1 million entry fees, courses designed to kill. Last year, 2 drivers went off a cliff on her mountain run. She didn't even stop the race. Adrian said the same thing. Then for once, Adrian Vale and I agree. Marcus handed back the card. This is suicide, Elara. Or it's a chance to race against the best, to prove I'm not just... She caught herself. Not just what? Nothing. But Marcus was too smart for that. His eyes narrowed. What did he say to you? It doesn't matter. It does if it's got you considering racing for Victoria Crane. Marcus crossed his arms. Talk. So she told him. Not everything, but enough. About the party, about overhearing Adrian, about the word decoration, and how it had cracked something inside her. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I never liked Adrian Vale, he said finally, but I thought he respected you at least. Guess I was wrong. Guess we both were. Marcus turned back to the charger. If I fix this car, and I mean if, you need to understand what you're getting into. Victoria's races aren't about skill, they're about survival. She invites drivers she thinks will put on a good show before they crash and burn. Maybe I won't crash. Elara, Marcus. She met his eyes. For 3 years, I've been someone I'm not. I've smiled and stood silent and played the role Adrian wanted. Tonight, I'm going to drive like I used to, like Nyx, like myself. I need this. Marcus sighed. You're asking me to help you kill yourself. I'm asking you to help me live. The silence stretched. Finally, Marcus shook his head. You always were stubborn. Fine. I'll prep the car, but you're going to do something for me first. What? There's a kid in the back bay. 16, thinks he's hot shit because he can drift. You're going to teach him that there's a difference between fast and reckless. Show him what real driving looks like. It wasn't a request. Elara found the kid exactly where Marcus said, in the back bay, sitting in a beat-up Nissan 24 OSX with a fart can exhaust and mismatched body panels. He looked up when she approached, his expression instantly dismissive. Who are you? Someone Marcus asked me to teach. The kid snorted, no offense, lady, but I don't need driving lessons. That's not what Marcus thinks. Marcus is old. His generation doesn't understand modern cars. Elara felt a smile tug at her mouth. She'd been this kid once, cocky, certain, convinced that confidence was the same as competence. Start your car, she said. What? Start it. We're going for a drive. I don't even know you. My name's Elara. Now start the damn car before I change my mind. Something in her voice made him listen. He fired up the 24 OSX, its exhaust loud and obnoxious. Elara climbed into the passenger seat. Take me to Miller's Run, she said. The kid's eyes widened. That's a legal street course. So? So, if we get caught, we won't. Drive. They made it to Miller's Run without incident, a stretch of abandoned industrial road that curved and twisted through old factory complexes. It was a driver's course, technical and unforgiving. Show me what you've got, Elara said. The kid grinned. He dropped the hammer. The 24 OSX accelerated hard, its engine screaming. The kid threw it into the first corner sideways, tires smoking, counter-steering with aggressive confidence. It looked impressive. It was also slow as hell. They finished the course with tires shredded and the smell of burning rubber thick in the air. The kid was breathing hard, adrenaline drunk. See, he said, I told you I could drive. You can drift, Elara corrected. That's not the same thing. What? You're bleeding speed in every corner. You're too aggressive with the steering. You think loud and sideways means fast, but you're wrong. My turn. She made him swap seats. The 24 OSX's clutch was shot, the steering sloppy, but it would do. Elara took the same course. No tire smoke, no dramatic slides, just smooth inputs, perfect lines, weight transfer managed with precision. She didn't drift through the corners, she drove through them, carrying maximum speed while the tires held their grip right at the edge. They finished 10 seconds faster than the kid's run. He sat in the passenger seat, stunned silent. That's the difference, Elara said, between putting on a show and actually being fast. Drifting is fun. It looks cool. But if you want to win, you need to understand that the fastest way through a corner is on the edge of grip, not over it. Who are you? The kid asked again, but differently this time. Someone who's made a lot of mistakes. Don't make the same ones. They drove back to Marcus's garage in silence. When they arrived, Marcus was grinning. Kid looks like he's seen a ghost, he said. I think he has, Elara replied. Marcus had the Charger on the lift, its underside exposed. Give me 4 hours. I'll have this thing dialed in, but Elara. He turned serious. Promise me something. What? If it gets bad tonight, if you're in over your head, run. Don't be stupid. Don't be proud. Just survive. Elara nodded. I promise. It was a lie, and they both knew it. Midnight approached. Pier 47 was exactly where Victoria's card said it would be, an abandoned shipping terminal on the city's north edge. Elara rolled up in the Charger, its newly tuned engine purring with barely contained violence. The scene was different from the street race. Fewer cars, but every single one was exotic. Lamborghinis, McLarens, A Bugatti that probably cost more than a small house. The drivers matched their cars, wealthy, polished, dressed like they were attending a gala rather than a race. Elara parked and climbed out. Her jeans and hoodie marked her as an outsider immediately. Victoria Crane stood near the pier's entrance, holding court with a group of spectators. She saw Elara and smiled. "Mrs. Vale," she called out, "you actually came. I'm impressed." "Where's the starting line?" "Eager. I like that." Victoria gestured to a man beside her, huge, bald, muscles like carved granite. "This is Dante. He handles security and other matters. He'll explain the course." Dante's voice was surprisingly soft. "Single elimination. You race head-to-head against one other driver. Winner advances. Loser goes home. The course runs through the old industrial district, 14 miles of city streets, highway access, and surface roads. No rules except don't kill any civilians. First person back here wins." "Entry fee?" Elara asked. $1 million. Victoria's smile was sharp as glass. Elara felt the number like a punch. She had 25,000 from last night's race. Not even close. Victoria must have seen it in her face because she laughed. "Don't worry, I'm feeling generous. Consider your entry fee waived. Call it professional curiosity. I want to see if Adrian Vale's little housewife is as good as last night suggested." The condescension stung, but Elara swallowed it. "Who do I race first?" "Me." The word dropped like a stone. Victoria's smile widened. "I don't usually race anymore," Victoria continued, "but you've piqued my interest. Let's see if you're really as good as you think you are." She walked to the Bugatti, a Chiron, matte black, worth $3 million. It looked like violence wrapped in carbon fiber. Elara looked at her Charger, 40 years old, modified by amateurs, held together by hope and Marcus's skill. "This is insane," someone behind her said. She turned. Adrian stood there, still in his suit from the gala, looking exhausted and angry, and something else she couldn't quite identify. "You came," she said. "Of course I came. You think I'd let you face Victoria alone? I don't need protection." "Clearly." His voice was tight. "That's why you're about to race a Bugatti Chiron in a 40-year-old muscle car, because you have everything under control." "I do." "Elara," he stepped closer, "this isn't like last night. Victoria doesn't play fair. She's going to do everything she can to make you crash, to make you quit, to prove you don't belong here." "Maybe I don't. Maybe." His eyes locked on hers. "Or maybe you're exactly who you used to be, and I was too stupid to see it." The words hung between them. Before Elara could respond, Dante called out, "Racers, to your vehicles!" Elara walked to the Charger. Adrian followed. "If this goes wrong," he started. "It won't. But if it does, if she tries something, if you need help, I'll be here." Elara looked at him. Really looked. For the first time in months, she saw something genuine in his face. Not the crime lord, not the collector. Just a man who'd realized too late what he had and how he'd failed it. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. "Because I was wrong." The admission seemed to cost him. "About you. About us. About everything I said in that study. You're not a decoration, Elara. You never were. I just convinced myself you were because it was easier than admitting I'd caged something wild." Elara felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness? Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something that could become forgiveness, given time. "Watch me race," she said. "Then we'll talk." She climbed into the Charger. The engine fired with a roar. Victoria pulled the Bugatti alongside. Through the window, she mouthed 2 words. "You're mine." Dante stood between them, a flashlight in each hand. The crowd pressed close, phones out, money changing hands as bets were placed. Elara's hands found their positions. Her breathing slowed. The world narrowed. Dante raised the lights. Elara thought about Adrian's words in the study, about being useless, about being a decoration. She thought about 3 years of suffocating in silk and pretending to be someone she wasn't. She thought about who she'd been before all of that. Nyx, undefeated, untouchable. The lights dropped. The Charger launched with violence that rattled her teeth. Beside her, the Bugatti's all-wheel drive and 1,500 horsepower made her start look amateur by comparison. Victoria pulled ahead immediately. They hit the first turn, a 90-degree right onto an access road. Victoria braked late, her car's advanced systems keeping it stable. Elara had no such luxury. She had to slow more, losing ground. By the time they reached the highway on-ramp, Victoria was 3 car lengths ahead. The Bugatti was faster. Objectively, undeniably faster. It could hit 260 miles per hour. The Charger would be lucky to crack 150. But speed wasn't everything. Elara had something Victoria didn't: knowledge. She'd driven these streets for years. She knew every pothole, every rough patch, every shortcut the city tried to forget. While Victoria took the highway, Elara dove right, cutting through an industrial park. Her tires shrieked on oil-stained concrete. The Charger's tail stepped out. She caught it with a flick of the wheel and kept accelerating. The route was dangerous, barely wide enough for 1 car, but it shaved off 2 miles. She burst back onto the main course just as Victoria was getting off the highway. The Bugatti's driver saw her and Elara could imagine her expression: shock, anger, realization that the race wasn't over. They screamed through the warehouse district side by side. Victoria tried to crowd her, to force her into the guardrail. Elara gave ground, let the Bugatti think it had won the position. Then she downshifted and punched the nitrous. The Charger surged forward with violence that pinned her to the seat. She pulled ahead, took the racing line through the next corner, and held it. Victoria tried to answer, tried to use the Bugatti's power to muscle past. But Elara knew this road. She knew exactly where it got rough, where the pavement buckled from years of heavy trucks. At 120 miles per hour, the Bugatti hit the rough patch. Its sophisticated suspension couldn't quite hide it. Victoria had to back off just slightly. Elara didn't. The Charger's old-school suspension was built for punishment. It hammered over the broken pavement without flinching. She pulled away. The finish line appeared, Pier 47's entrance, marked by lights and the crowd. Elara crossed first by 2 seconds. She stood on the brakes, the Charger's tires screaming. When she stopped, her hands were shaking, not from fear, from triumph. The crowd erupted. Even the people who'd bet against her were cheering. They'd just seen something impossible. Elara climbed out. Adrian was there first, his expression something she'd never seen before. Pride, maybe. Or recognition. Victoria pulled up in the Bugatti, killed the engine, and sat there for a long moment before emerging. Her perfect composure was cracked, just slightly. She walked to Elara. For a heartbeat, Elara thought she might get violent. Instead, Victoria laughed.
"Well, I'll be damned. Good race," Elara said. "Good race." Victoria's eyes glittered with something dangerous and impressed. "You know what? You've earned a new name tonight. Nyx is back, and she's scarier than I remembered." The crowd pressed close, congratulations and questions flying. But Elara only had eyes for one person. Adrian stood apart from the chaos, watching her. When their eyes met, he nodded once. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness.
But it was acknowledgement. Elara Vance, Nyx, had just reminded the world who she really was, and this was only the beginning. The adrenaline didn't fade. Even an hour later, sitting in Marcus's garage with the Charger cooling and ticking, Elara's hands still trembled slightly. Not from fear, from the sharp clarity of knowing she'd just beaten Victoria Crane at her own game. Adrian leaned against the workbench, tie loosened, jacket slung over his shoulder. He looked exhausted. "You should have told me." "Told you what?" "That you could drive like that. That you were Nyx." He rubbed his face. 3 years, Elara. 3 years we've been married, and I didn't know." "You didn't ask." She was checking the Charger's oil, her movements automatic. "You decided who I should be, and I let you. My mistake. Our mistake." She looked up at him. In the garage's harsh fluorescent light, Adrian looked older somehow, less untouchable. "What are you doing here, Adrian? Really? You've got an empire to run, associates to impress. Why follow me to a street race?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Because when I saw you leave tonight, when I realized you'd heard everything I said to Marcus, I knew I'd broken something I couldn't fix with money or apologies." "You're right, you can't. But maybe I can earn it back." He pushed off the workbench. "What you did tonight, beating Victoria, that's going to have consequences. She doesn't lose gracefully." "I noticed." "I'm serious. Victoria Crane isn't just a racing enthusiast. She's connected to people who make me look like a street corner dealer. Russian syndicates, Chinese triads. She runs races to launder money and broker deals between criminals who'd otherwise kill each other on sight. Elara wiped her hands on a rag. And you know this because I've done business with her. Before you. Before I tried to... He caught himself. Before you tried to go legitimate? She couldn't keep the edge out of her voice. Is that what our marriage was? Your attempt at respectability?
No, that's not... Adrian's jaw tightened. I married you because when I walked into Marcus's garage that night, you looked at me like I was just another customer, not Adrian Vale, crime lord, just a guy with a broken car. You didn't fear me. You didn't want anything from me. You just fixed my problem and asked for fair payment. And then you decided to fix me. The words landed hard. Adrian flinched.
I didn't see it that way, he said quietly. I thought I was protecting you, giving you a better life, safety, security, everything I never had growing up. I didn't need protection. I needed a partner. I know that now. The garage door rolled open. Marcus walked in carrying takeout bags, the smell of Chinese food following him. He looked between Elara and Adrian, reading the room with the ease of someone who'd survived 60 years in a dangerous world. You two sorting your shit out? Marcus asked bluntly. Working on it, Elara said. Work faster, because word's already spreading about what happened tonight. Marcus set the food on the workbench. I've got 3 different crews asking if Nix is back for real. 2 of Victoria's people sniffing around, and someone claiming to represent the Sinaloa cartel wanting to know if you're available for a job. Adrian's expression went cold. The cartel?
They move cars across the border. High-value merchandise. They want drivers who can outrun law enforcement. Marcus pulled out containers. They're offering $200,000 per run. No, Adrian said immediately. I wasn't asking you. Elara grabbed a container. What's the job exactly? Elara, I said I wasn't asking you, Adrian. She met his eyes, daring him to push. Marcus, details.
Marcus glanced at Adrian, then shrugged. They need someone to drive a modified Tesla Model S Plaid from San Diego to a warehouse outside Tijuana. The car's carrying something in the chassis. They didn't say what. You don't ask. You just drive fast, avoid checkpoints, and deliver the package. When? 3 days from now. Adrian's hand hit the workbench. Absolutely not. You're talking about crossing international borders with cartel merchandise. You get caught, you're looking at 20 years in federal prison. Minimum. Or I make $200,000 in one night. Elara ate cold lo mein straight from the container. More than you've given me access to in 3 years. That hit him. She saw it in the way his shoulders tensed. I gave you credit cards, he said. Full access to your accounts, your money, everything in your name. She set down the container. I had to ask permission to buy a coffee, Adrian. Every purchase tracked, every dollar accounted for. That's not financial security. That's a leash. The silence stretched. Marcus ate his food, watching them like this was better than television. Finally, Adrian spoke. If you want money, I'll transfer you whatever you need. $1 million, $10 million. Just don't do something stupid because you're angry at me. I'm not angry. I'm done. Elara pulled out her phone, the one she'd turned back on to call Marcus. 17 missed calls from Adrian, 32 texts. She deleted them all without reading. I'm done being your kept woman, your decoration, your controllable asset. If I'm going to have money, I'm going to earn it myself. By becoming a cartel driver. By using the one skill I have that's worth something. You have other skills. Name one that you valued. She waited. You can't, can you? Because you never asked what I was good at. You just wanted me pretty and quiet at your parties. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. A bank transfer confirmation. $5 million to an account in her name. There, he said. It's yours, not mine, no strings, no access required. Just promise me you won't work for the cartel. Elara stared at the screen. $5 million. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Freedom in digital form. It felt like a bribe. Keep it, she said. Elara, I don't want your guilt money. She stood, wiping her hands. If I'm going to rebuild my life, I'm doing it my way, with my skills.
on my terms.
She walked out of the garage before Adrian could respond. The night air was cold, tinged with the smell of the city's industrial heart. She heard Adrian following, but didn't stop. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he called out. "Good. Nothing about us has been hard enough." She reached the charger, keys in hand. "You got comfortable treating me like property. Maybe hard is what we need." "Where are you going?" "None of your business." "Elara, please, just—" He caught up to her, hand on the car door before she could open it. "Talk to me. Tell me what you want." "I want to be someone again." The words came out raw, unfiltered. "For 3 years, I've been Mrs. Adrian Vale. That's it. Not Elara, not Nix. Just an extension of you. And tonight, for the first time since I made the mistake of marrying you, I remembered what it felt like to be whole." Adrian's hand fell away from the door. In the streetlight's orange glow, he looked older than his 42 years.
"I never meant to make you feel like that. But you did. So what now? You race for cartels, you work for people who'll kill you if you make one mistake? Maybe. Or maybe I find another way." She opened the door. "But whatever I do, it's going to be my choice. Not yours, not anyone else's. Mine."
She drove away before he could answer. In the rearview mirror, she watched him standing alone on the street, looking lost. Part of her felt guilty for that. The larger part felt free. The apartment above the Vietnamese restaurant was dark when she arrived. Mrs. Nguyen's place was closed for the night, the street quiet except for distant traffic. Elara climbed the exterior stairs, her legs heavy with exhaustion that was more emotional than physical. Inside, she collapsed on the futon without bothering to undress. Sleep came hard and fractured, full of dreams about racing and Adrian's voice calling her a decoration and Victoria Crane's smile sharp as broken glass. She woke to pounding on her door. Gray morning light filtered through the window. The pounding continued. "I know you're in there," Victoria Crane's voice, muffled by the door. "We need to talk." Elara sat up, instantly awake. She grabbed the tire iron she kept by the bed, old habits from her street racing days, and approached the door. "How did you find me?" "Please, I run an underground racing empire. Finding people is what I do." A pause. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here with an offer." "Not interested." "You haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to. I've already got Adrian Vale trying to control my life. I don't need another criminal making demands." Victoria laughed. "Adrian Vale is small time compared to me, sweetheart. And I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to hire you." Against her better judgment, Elara opened the door but kept the chain on. Victoria stood in the hallway wearing designer athleisure and sunglasses despite the overcast morning. Behind her, Dante loomed like a wall of muscle. "5 minutes," Elara said. "Talk." "Can we come in? The hallway smells like fish sauce." "That's Mrs. Nguyen's cooking. It's delicious. You've got 4 minutes now." Victoria's smile was sharp. "Fine. Here's the situation. You embarrassed me last night. Beat me in front of my associates, my clients, people who bet millions on me never losing. And normally, I'd make your life very difficult. But I'm impressed. You drove a 40-year-old muscle car against a Bugatti and won through pure skill. That's rare, useful." She pulled out a business card, different from the first one, embossed with a phone number and nothing else. "I'm organizing an event. Private. Invitation only. 10 drivers. $1 million entry fee. Winner takes $10 million. "I don't have $1 million. "I'll front your entry. You win, you pay me back plus 10% interest. You lose—" Victoria's smile widened. "You work for me for 1 year, driving whatever I need driven, whenever I need it. That's called indentured servitude. That's called business." Victoria checked her watch. Something expensive and Swiss. "You've got 24 hours to decide. The race is in 5 days. Location undisclosed until the day before. But I'll tell you this much. It's not in the city. It's cross-country, 3,000 miles. No rules except finish first." "Why me?" "Because you're good. Because you're hungry. And because Adrian Vale's wife winning would make excellent theater." Victoria turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Elara? The cartel job Marcus mentioned? That's my operation. I'm the one who moves merchandise across borders. So if you turn me down for this race but take that job, you're still working for me. Might as well get the better deal. She left, Dante following silently. Elara stood in the doorway, Victoria's card in her hand, her mind racing. $10 million. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over. Enough to never need Adrian's money or anyone else's. But if she lost, she'd spend a year as Victoria's driver. A year moving illegal cargo, risking her life, probably her freedom. Her phone buzzed. Adrian calling again. She let it go to voicemail, then another call. Marcus this time. She answered. "You okay?" Marcus asked without preamble. "Define okay." "Victoria came to see you." "How did you—" "Never mind." "Yes. She made an offer." "The cross-country race." It wasn't a question. "I heard about it. 3,000 miles through back roads, mountain passes, and desert. They call it the Death Run. Last time she organized one, 4 years ago, 2 drivers died. 3 more ended up in prison. You're full of good news today." "I'm serious, Elara. This isn't street racing. This is professional criminal activity, interstate flight, reckless endangerment. If the FBI catches you, they'll throw every charge they can at you. And if I win, I'm set for life." Marcus was quiet for a beat. "Is that what this is about? Money?" "It's about being more than what Adrian made me." "You were always more than that. You just forgot." The words sat heavy in her chest. "Maybe. Or maybe I need to prove it. To him. To myself. To everyone who looked at me last night and saw Adrian Vale's wife instead of a driver. And if you die proving it, then at least I'll die as myself." Marcus sighed. "You sound like your father." Elara went still. "You knew my father?" "I knew of him. Tommy Vance. Best street racer in the city before he wrapped his car around a bridge support doing 160 on a residential street." Another pause. "You were 6 when it happened. Your mother never forgave him for leaving you like that. Neither did you, I think." "I don't remember him." A lie. She remembered fragments, his hands on a steering wheel, the smell of motor oil, the sound of an engine that never stopped running. "Maybe that's better." Marcus's voice softened. "Look, I can't stop you from racing Victoria's event, but I can make sure your car's ready. Come by the garage. Let's talk about what you'll need." "You'll help me?" "I'll help you survive. Can't promise more than that." After Marcus hung up, Elara sat on the futon, staring at Victoria's card. Her phone buzzed again, another text from Adrian. "I'm not giving up on us. On you. Whatever you decide, I'm here." She almost laughed. Now he wanted to be there. Now, after 3 years of treating her like furniture that occasionally needed dusting. But there was something in the message that felt genuine. Not the smooth operator who'd swept her off her feet. Not the crime lord who controlled everything. Just a man who'd realized too late what he'd lost. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Yes, Mrs. Vale." A man's voice. Accented. Russian, maybe. "My name is Dmitry Volkov. I work with Victoria Crane. She said you might be interested in our race." "She gave you my number?" "Victoria shares everything with her partners." A smile in his voice. "I'm calling to provide details. The race begins in Montana, ends in Miami, 3,000 miles, 10 drivers. You'll be given a car. Your choice from our collection. We'll handle all preparations." "What's in it for you? For Victoria?" "Entertainment, betting, the thrill of watching talented people push themselves to breaking." He said it casually, like discussing the weather. "Also, we move certain assets during the chaos. Law enforcement watches the race. They don't watch our other activities. So I'm a distraction. You're a competitor. The distraction is a bonus." Papers rustling on his end. "You have 24 hours to commit. After that, we fill your slot with someone else. But Mrs. Vale, Victoria wants you specifically. Don't disappoint her." He hung up before she could respond. Elara sat in the apartment's dim light, turning Victoria's card over in her hands. This was insane. Illegal. Dangerous. Everything Adrian had warned her about. It was also exactly what she needed. She pulled out her laptop, an old model she'd kept hidden from Adrian, its hard drive full of race footage and mechanical diagrams and the remnants of the person she used to be. She opened a search browser and typed, "Victoria Crane Death Run." The results were scarce. A few forum posts on underground racing sites. Speculation, rumors. One article from a Montana newspaper 4 years ago about multiple high-speed chases that ended in crashes. No names, no official connection to Victoria. But in the forums, people talked. They mentioned drivers who disappeared after Victoria's races. Some resurfaced in prison. Some never resurfaced at all. One post caught her eye, written by someone with the username GhostDriver88. I ran Victoria's race in 2021, made it 1,200 miles before the FBI boxed me in outside Amarillo. Spent 2 years in federal prison. The money's real. So are the consequences. If you're thinking about running, ask yourself, is 10 million worth your life? Elara closed the laptop. Her hands were steady now. The trembling from earlier was gone, replaced by cold certainty. She texted Marcus, "I'm doing it. Let's build a car that can win." Then she texted Victoria's number. "I'm in. When do we start?" The response came within seconds. Friday midnight. Montana. Details to follow. Don't be late. Elara looked around the apartment. This place had been her refuge, her secret, her anchor to who she used to be. In 5 days, she'd leave it behind to drive 3,000 miles for a woman who probably wanted her dead, and $10 million that might not exist. Her phone rang again. Adrian, persistent as ever. This time, she answered. "Are you okay?" He sounded worried. Actually worried. Not the performative concern he used to deploy at parties when she'd had too much champagne. "I'm fine. Victoria came to see you." "You've got people watching me now?" "I've got people watching Victoria. There's a difference." Background noise on his end, voices, movement. He was at one of his businesses. "What did she offer you?" Elara considered lying, decided against it. "A race, cross-country, 10 million if I win." Silence. Then, "The death run." "You know about it. Everyone in the underground knows about it. It's a myth, a nightmare. Drivers don't finish that race, Elara. They die or get arrested or disappear. Some finish." 1. In the last 4 years, one driver finished, a Russian named Alexei Kozlov. He won the 10 million, then got assassinated 3 months later by a competitor who wanted revenge. Cheerful. "I'm serious. Victoria's race isn't about skill. It's about survival. She designs the course to break people, and even if you make it to the end, you'll have made enemies who won't forgive you for beating them." Elara walked to the window. Dawn was breaking properly now, gray light giving way to pale blue. "Then I'll deal with those enemies when I get there." "Don't do this. Why do you care?" "Because—" He stopped, started again. "Because I love you. I know I haven't shown it. I know I've been controlling and dismissive in every other thing you accused me of. But I love you, Elara, and I can't watch you kill yourself trying to prove something to me." The words should have felt good. They didn't. They felt 3 years too late. "I'm not doing this to prove something to you," she said quietly. "I'm doing it for me. To remember who I am. Who I was before you decided I should be someone else." "Then let me help. No, this is mine. My race, my risk, my choice." She paused. "But Adrian, if I don't make it back, the apartment's address is in my phone under home. Give the keys to Marcus. He'll know what to do with my things." "Elara," she hung up. Her hands were shaking again, but not from adrenaline, from the weight of what she'd just committed to. 3,000 miles, 10 drivers, 1 winner. She had 5 days to prepare. Marcus's garage became her second home. They stripped the Charger down to bare metal, examining every component, every weld, every potential failure point. The engine got a complete rebuild. New pistons, reinforced internals, upgraded fuel system. Marcus sourced parts from connections Elara didn't ask about. "You'll need endurance," Marcus explained, torquing down cylinder heads. "This isn't a sprint. You're looking at 40, 50 hours of continuous driving. The car needs to handle it. You need to handle it." "I will." "Will you?" He looked up, grease-stained and serious. "When's the last time you drove for more than 4 hours straight?" She couldn't remember. Before Adrian, probably. Before she'd become someone who had drivers. "That's what I thought." Marcus wiped his hands. "We've got 3 days until you leave. Starting tomorrow, you're driving. 8-hour shifts. No breaks. I want you used to the fatigue, the monotony, the way your body starts to rebel after hour 5. "Where am I supposed to drive for 8 hours?" "Leave that to me. The next morning, Marcus handed her keys to a beat-up Honda Civic. This is your training vehicle. You're going to drive to Chicago and back, 12 hours each way. No stopping except for gas. That's insane. That's preparation. The Civic's reliable. Boring. Exactly what you need to build endurance. He pushed the keys into her hand. Go. I'll finish the charger while you're gone. Elara drove. Chicago was 600 miles away, most of it highway monotony. After 4 hours, her back ached. After 6, her eyes burned. After 8, she understood what Marcus meant about the body rebelling, but she kept driving. Through Illinois flatlands and Indiana industrial zones, and the way the world looked the same for miles and miles until it didn't. She made it to Chicago at midnight, turned around, and drove back. By the time she reached Marcus's garage 24 hours after leaving, she was hallucinating exit signs, and her hands were cramped into permanent steering wheel shapes. Marcus took one look at her and nodded. Good. Now you know what you're up against. Sleep. Tomorrow, we do it again. Again? You've got 2 more training runs before Friday. Better get used to it. The second run was Pittsburgh and back. Shorter distance, mountain roads, teaching her to stay alert through elevation changes and winding curves. The third was a midnight run to Atlantic City, teaching her to drive in the dark when exhaustion made everything dangerous. By Thursday, Elara felt like she'd aged years. Her body ached in places she'd forgotten existed. But she could drive, hour after hour, mile after mile, her mind staying sharp even when her body screamed for rest. The charger was ready too. Marcus had transformed it from a forgotten relic into something purpose-built and dangerous. New suspension, upgraded brakes. The engine now produced 600 horsepower without nitrous, 750 with it. He'd added auxiliary fuel tanks, run-flat tires, and a roll cage that would survive anything short of a direct missile strike. This is the best work I've ever done, Marcus said, standing back to admire it. She'll run forever if you treat her right. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you come back alive. Thursday night, Adrian showed up at the garage. He looked terrible. Unshaven, eyes shadowed, tie missing for once. Marcus took one look at them and made himself scarce, muttering about inventory in the back room. I tried to talk Victoria out of including you, Adrian said without preamble. Offered her money, territory, a slice of my operations. She said no. I didn't ask you to do that. I know. I did it anyway. He moved closer, stopping just outside comfortable distance. I can't stop you from racing, but I can make sure you're not alone out there. I've got people in every major city between here and Miami. Phone numbers, safe houses. If you need help, they'll provide it. No questions. He handed her a burner phone. The contacts list was extensive, names and numbers spanning half the country. I don't need your help, she said, but she took the phone anyway. Maybe not, but you've got it. His eyes searched her face. I meant what I said before. I love you. And if you make it back from this, if you still want nothing to do with me, I'll accept that. But I need you to know that these 3 years, they weren't all lies. I did love you. I just loved you wrong. Elara felt something crack in her chest, not breaking, just shifting, making room for complications she didn't want to feel. I don't know what to do with that, she said honestly. You don't have to do anything. Just come back alive. Then we'll figure out the rest. He left before she could respond. The burner phone sat heavy in her hand, full of lifelines she'd probably never use. Marcus emerged from the back. He's not entirely wrong, you know. About what? About loving you wrong. The old man's expression was softer than usual. Some people don't know how to love anything without trying to own it. Adrian's one of them. Doesn't make it right, but it explains some things. You defending him now? I'm defending you. Because someone who loves you enough to build an entire support network across the country, even knowing you might never forgive him, is someone who's trying. Badly, but trying. Elara didn't answer. She just walked to the charger and ran her hand along its hood. Tomorrow night, she'd climb inside this machine and drive until she either won or crashed, or ended up in handcuffs. And maybe, somewhere along those 3,000 miles, she'd figure out who Elara Vance really was. Not Adrian's wife, not Nick's the legendary racer, just herself, whatever that meant. Get some sleep, Marcus said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But Elara didn't sleep. She spent the night in the garage, memorizing every inch of the Charger, checking and rechecking systems until her hands knew the car better than her own body. When dawn broke Friday morning, she was ready, or as ready as anyone could be for something this insane. The flight to Montana was commercial, which surprised her. Elara half expected Victoria to send a private jet or some other display of criminal wealth. Instead, she got a coach seat on a red-eye with a screaming baby 3 rows back and a man who smelled like he'd bathed in cologne sitting next to her. The Charger was being transported separately. Marcus had arranged for a specialized hauler to drive it out, meeting her at the starting location. She'd argued about letting the car out of her sight, but Marcus had been firm. "You need rest before this thing starts," he'd said. "Not 30 hours behind the wheel getting to Montana. Trust me on this." So she'd trusted him, even though trusting felt dangerous right now. The plane touched down in Billings just after 3 a.m. The airport was dead, just a handful of travelers and one custodian pushing a mop across empty floors. Elara collected her bag, a duffel with clothes, tools, and the burner phone Adrian had given her, and walked outside into air so cold it hurt to breathe. A black SUV idled at the curb. The rear window rolled down and Victoria Crane's face appeared, perfect even at this hour. "Get in," she said. Not a request. Elara climbed into the back seat. Dante was driving, his massive frame somehow folded into the driver's seat. Victoria sat beside her, dressed in fur and leather like she was heading to a fashion show instead of an illegal street race. "Sleep well?" Victoria asked. "Not really." "Good. Keeps you sharp." Victoria pulled out a tablet and swiped through screens. "We're 40 minutes from the staging area. The other drivers are already there. I'll brief you on the way." The SUV pulled away from the airport, heading into darkness broken only by occasional highway lights. Montana stretched around them, vast, empty, intimidating in its scale. "The race begins at midnight tonight," Victoria said, all business now. 10 drivers as promised. The route is approximately 3,000 miles, ending in Miami. You'll receive GPS coordinates for checkpoints along the way. You must hit each one or you're disqualified. Miss 2 consecutive checkpoints and we assume you've either quit or crashed. Either way, you're out. "What about the police?" Victoria smiled. "We have people monitoring law enforcement channels. You'll receive alerts if there's significant activity near your route. But understand, we can't protect you completely. If you get pulled over, if you get caught, you're on your own. We'll disavow any knowledge of you or this race." "Of course you will. The prize is 10 million, as stated. Winner take all. Second place gets nothing. Third place gets a bullet if they caused problems for the winner." She said it casually, like discussing menu options. "Questions?" "Yeah, why run a race this dangerous? What's in it for you besides entertainment?" Victoria's smile widened. "Smart question. The truth? This race is cover. While every law enforcement agency between here and Florida is chasing 10 high-performance vehicles driving like maniacs, my organization is moving product. Lots of it. Drugs, weapons, money, things that need to cross state lines without scrutiny. You and the other drivers are the distraction. So we're bait. We're your well-compensated bait." Victoria tapped the tablet. "Your car arrived 2 hours ago. Marcus Chen does excellent work. I examined it personally. Very impressive for something built in a small garage." The compliment felt wrong coming from her. "Where are the other drivers from?" "Everywhere. We've got a former Formula One driver who crashed out after a cocaine scandal, a Saudi prince who races for fun and kills for sport, a woman from Tokyo who's never lost a street race, a trucker from Texas who runs meth and knows every back road in America, and others." She scrolled through profiles. "They're all dangerous, they're all desperate, and they all want that $10 million as badly as you do." The SUV turned off the highway onto a dirt road that seemed to lead nowhere. They drove for another 20 minutes through scrubland and darkness until lights appeared in the distance. The staging area was an abandoned airfield, its runway cracked and overgrown but still functional. Portable lights illuminated 9 vehicles arranged in a semicircle, each one a masterpiece of engineering and criminal intent. A McLaren 720S in matte black, a modified GTR with a carbon fiber body, a Porsche 911 Turbo S that sat low and aggressive, a Tesla Model S Plaid, probably the one the cartel used for border runs, an Audi RS6 Avant,
that looked like a family car until you saw the roll cage and racing harness. A Corvette C8Z06, a BMW M5 competition, a Mercedes AMG GT Black Series, and a Dodge Viper that looked like it had been built to kill its driver.
The Charger sat apart from the others, looking brutal and raw next to their polished elegance. Marcus stood beside it, arms crossed, looking exhausted. Elara climbed out of the SUV and went straight to him. "Everything okay?"
Drive was fine, car's perfect. He handed her the keys. "I adjusted the suspension for highway driving. You can switch it to sport mode for when things get technical. Fuel efficiency's not great. You'll need to stop every 300 miles or so. I mapped out gas stations along potential routes." He pulled out a printed sheet covered in handwriting. "Study this, memorize it. Don't rely on GPS, signal's going to be spotty in some areas." "Thank you." Marcus's expression softened slightly. "You ready for this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's what I thought you'd say." He glanced at the other drivers. They were emerging from trailers and tents, sizing each other up. "Watch out for the guy in the McLaren. Name's Hassan al-Rashid. Saudi money. Zero conscience. He's killed 3 people in street races and his family paid to make the charges disappear." "Cheerful." "The woman in the GTR is Yuki Tanaka, Tokyo legend. She's fast, she's smart, and she doesn't make mistakes. If anyone's winning this besides you, it's her." He pointed to the Viper. "That's driven by someone calling himself Reaper, American, probably ex-military based on his driving style. He treats every race like combat." "You've been doing research. I've been keeping you alive." Marcus grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm. "Listen to me. This isn't about pride anymore. This isn't about proving anything to Adrian or Victoria or anyone else. This is about survival. If you can't win, don't die trying. Just come home." Elara hugged him. It surprised them both. "I'll try." "Try harder than that?" Victoria's voice cut through the cold air. "Drivers, gather up." The 10 of them assembled in front of Victoria and Dante. Elara studied her competition. Hassan al-Rashid looked exactly as Marcus described. Wealthy, bored, dangerous. Yuki Tanaka was tiny, maybe 5'2", with purple hair and a leather jacket covered in Japanese racing patches. Reaper wore tactical gear and sunglasses despite the darkness. The others were a mix of types, young, old, male, female, united only by the hunger in their eyes. Victoria stood on the hood of her Bugatti, commanding attention effortlessly. "Welcome to the death run. Some of you have raced for me before, most of you haven't. The rules are simple. First one to Miami wins $10 million. Hit your checkpoints. Don't get caught. Don't die. Everything else is negotiable." "What about interference?" Yuki's voice was accented but clear. "If someone tries to run me off the road, are weapons permitted?" "Weapons are always permitted," Victoria said. "But remember, you kill another driver, you better make sure it looks like an accident. We don't need murder investigations complicating things." Hassan laughed. "So basically, no rules." "Basically." Victoria's smile was sharp. "You have until midnight to prepare. Check your vehicles. Review your routes. Say your prayers if you're the religious type. At midnight, you leave in 60-second intervals. First away is Hassan, determined by lottery. Last away is..." She checked her tablet. "Mrs. Elara Vale." Great. Starting last meant everyone else would be ahead, setting the pace, while she played catch-up. The drivers dispersed to their vehicles. Elara went to the Charger and popped the hood, running through final checks even though Marcus had already done them perfectly. It gave her hand something to do besides shake. "Mrs. Vale?" She looked up. Hassan al-Rashid stood there, all expensive watches and arrogant smile. Up close, he was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, with the kind of good looks that came from genetics and personal trainers. "I wanted to introduce myself," he said. "Hassan al-Rashid. I'll be the one beating you to Miami." "Good luck with that." "I don't need luck. I have the fastest car here, and I've been racing since I was 16. He leaned against the Charger's fender like he owned it. "But I'm curious, why would Adrian Vale's wife risk her life for Victoria Crane? Did he not give you enough allowance?" Elara's hand tightened on the wrench she was holding. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're driving a car that's older than I am. I know you beat Victoria in a street race and think that makes you qualified for this." His smile widened. "I also know that desperation makes people stupid. You're desperate, Mrs. Vale. I can smell it." "You know what I smell?" Elara straightened, meeting his eyes. Money and privilege and the kind of confidence that comes from never facing real consequences. You've probably never lost anything that Daddy's wallet couldn't replace. Hassan's smile froze. Careful. Or what? You'll have me killed? Get in line. She turned back to the engine. Now get off my car before I use this wrench somewhere uncomfortable. He left, but not before saying, See you in Miami, if you make it that far. Yuki Tanaka approached next, but her energy was completely different. She simply nodded at the Charger. Nice build. American muscle is underrated. Thanks, your GTR looks serious. It is. Yuki pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a drag. You're the one who beat Victoria, yes? Yeah. Good. She needed humbling. Yuki studied her with sharp eyes. You're scared. That's smart. The ones who aren't scared are the ones who die first. Are you scared? Terrified. I have a daughter in Tokyo, 6 years old. If I win this, she gets a real education, a real future, not the streets like I had. Yuki's expression hardened. So yes, I'm scared, but I'll drive through fear if it means she gets better. Elara felt something shift, recognition maybe. They weren't so different, her and this Japanese racer, both fighting for something bigger than themselves. Good luck, Elara said, meaning it. You too. Try not to die. Yuki walked away, smoke trailing behind her. The hours crawled toward midnight. Elara tried to eat but couldn't, tried to rest but stayed wired. She checked the Charger obsessively, adjusted tire pressure, tested the nitrous system, did everything except think about what she was about to do. At 11:30, Victoria called them back together. Final briefing. Your first checkpoint is in Rapid City, South Dakota, 400 miles northeast. After that, checkpoints will be texted to your phones as you progress. The route is designed to avoid major highways where possible. We want you on back roads, state routes, anything that keeps you off police radar. She handed each driver a phone. Identical burner models with only Victoria's organization's number programmed in. These phones are your lifeline. GPS coordinates for checkpoints will come through here. Emergency contact if you crash or get arrested, though we probably won't answer. And one more thing. Victoria's voice dropped. Dangerous. These phones track your location. Try to cheat the route. Try to skip checkpoints. Try anything clever, and we'll know. The penalty for cheating is worse than losing. Nobody asked what that penalty was. Nobody wanted to know. It's 11:45, Victoria said. Drivers to your vehicles. Hassan, you're up first at midnight. The rest of you follow at 60-second intervals. Mrs. Vale, you're last at midnight plus 9 minutes. Don't be late. The drivers moved to their cars. Engines fired up, a symphony of power and violence. The McLaren's twin-turbo V8, the GTR's straight-six scream, the Viper's V10 rumble, and the Charger's V8 roar, deeper and more primal than any of them. Elara sat behind the wheel, hands on the familiar leather, breathing slow and steady. Through the windshield, she watched Hassan line up at the runway's edge. Victoria stood beside him with a flashlight. At exactly midnight, she dropped the light. Hassan launched, the McLaren's all-wheel drive clawing pavement, its taillights disappearing into darkness in seconds. 60 seconds later, Yuki and the GTR. Then Reaper and the Viper. Then the others, one by one, until Elara sat alone at the starting line with Victoria beside her window. Any last words? Victoria asked. Yeah. What happens if I win? Then you're $10 million richer and you've earned my respect. Both equally dangerous. Victoria smiled. But I don't think you'll win, Mrs. Vale. I think you'll crash somewhere in Nebraska or get arrested in Missouri or simply give up when you realize how outclassed you are. You bet $1 million on me losing? I bet $1 million on you being interesting. Win or lose, you'll put on a good show. Victoria checked her watch. 30 seconds. Better get ready. Elara gripped the wheel, adjusted the mirrors one last time, felt the engine's vibration through the seat. 10 seconds. Her father had died racing, wrapped his car around a bridge support going 160, left her mother alone with a 6-year-old kid in debt and nothing but memories of a man who loved speed more than responsibility. 5 seconds. She'd sworn she'd never be like him, never prioritize racing over what mattered. Then she'd met Adrian and abandoned racing entirely, trying to be someone safe and stable. 3, 2. Now here she was, her father's daughter after all,
about to drive 3,000 miles for money and pride and the chance to prove she was more than what anyone thought. Victoria dropped the light. Elara dropped the hammer. The Charger's rear tires erupted into smoke. The car squatted, weight transferring, then launched forward with violence that pinned her to the seat. She hit second gear, third, the speedometer climbing past 80, 90, 100. The runway ended. She turned hard onto the dirt access road, the Charger's suspension absorbing the rough surface, Marcus's modifications earning their keep immediately. Then she was on pavement, on a state route heading northeast, alone in the darkness with 3,000 miles ahead and 9 competitors somewhere in the night, already racing toward the same destination. The first hour was surreal. Montana's emptiness swallowed her whole, just dark roads and distant mountains, and the Charger's headlights cutting through nothing. She kept the speed at 90, fast enough to make progress, but not fast enough to attract attention. Not yet. The burner phone Victoria had given her buzzed. A text with GPS coordinates and a single word, checkpoint, Rapid City, South Dakota. She was currently 200 miles out. At this pace, she'd arrive in about 2 hours. But the other drivers had a 9-minute head start. They'd already be ahead, probably pushing harder, taking more risks. She pressed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed to 110, 120. The Charger ate the road, its engine singing. The second hour brought police. She saw the first patrol car sitting at a junction, radar gun visible in the window. She'd slowed to 75 before passing, watching the rearview mirror. The cop didn't move. Either he hadn't clocked her speed or he'd been paid to look the other way. Victoria's influence ran deep. By hour 3, Elara crossed into South Dakota. The landscape barely changed, still empty, still dark, still endless. Her mind started playing tricks, seeing taillights that weren't there, imagining crashes around every curve. This was what Marcus had trained her for. The monotony, the fatigue, the way long-distance racing attacked your mind before it attacked your body. She drank water from the bottle Marcus had packed, ate energy bars that tasted like cardboard, kept the radio off because music would lull her into complacency. At 4:17 a.m., she reached Rapid City. The checkpoint was a truck stop on the edge of town. She pulled in, scanning for the other drivers' cars. Only 3 vehicles were there: the Viper, the BMW M5, and the Corvette. That meant 6 drivers were already ahead. 6 drivers pushing harder, taking more risks, extending their lead. She pulled up to the designated pump. Victoria's text had specified which one, and a man in a truck stop uniform approached. He held a scanner, checked something on his phone, then nodded. "You're confirmed. Mrs. Vale, position 9 of 10. Next checkpoint will come through in 30 minutes. He glanced at the Charger. "Nice car. My dad had one of these." "It'll get me there."
If you say so. The GTR and McLaren came through here 45 minutes ago. They're hauling ass. The Saudi guy nearly killed someone pulling out. 45 minutes. That was a huge gap already. Elara filled the tank, used the bathroom, questionable at best, and bought more water and food. By the time she got back to the car, she'd lost another 8 minutes. 8 minutes she couldn't afford.
She was about to leave when Reaper walked over from the Viper. Up close, his tactical gear looked worn, used. Military surplus, probably. His face was hard, 30s, scarred across one cheek. "You're Vale's wife," he said. Not a question. "Yeah. He's got people watching this race. Did you know that?" Elara went still. "What?" "Adrian Vale. He's got assets in every city we're passing through. I saw 2 of his guys at the Montana staging area. He's protecting you without you knowing it." Reaper's expression was unreadable behind the sunglasses. "Just thought you should know. Some of us are racing alone. You've got a safety net." He walked away before she could respond. Adrian. Interfering even when she'd explicitly told him not to. Part of her was furious. The other part felt something warmer, more complicated. The burner phone from Victoria buzzed again. New coordinates: Omaha, Nebraska, 600 miles. Elara got back in the Charger and drove. Dawn broke somewhere in South Dakota, turning the sky from black to gray to pale blue. The empty landscape gained definition: rolling hills, scattered farms, billboards advertising truck stops, and Jesus. The fatigue was real now. Elara felt it in her eyes, in the way her focus kept slipping. She'd been awake for over 24 hours. The training runs with Marcus helped, but this was different. This was adrenaline and fear and the knowledge that 9 other drivers were out there, each one pushing as hard as she was. She passed the BMW M5 around hour 7. It was pulled over at a rest stop, hood up, steam rising from the engine. The driver, a German man Marcus had identified as Klaus something, stood beside it looking defeated. 1 down, 9 to go. But the leaders were still far ahead. Hassan's McLaren, Yuki's GTR, the Tesla, the Porsche. They'd built their gap, and now they were maintaining it, running the race like professionals while she played catch-up. She hit Omaha just after noon. The checkpoint was a warehouse district, industrial and deserted on a Saturday. She pulled into the designated lot, and another of Victoria's people confirmed her position. 7th of 9 remaining drivers. Better than 9th, but still in the back half. "How far ahead is first place?" she asked. The guy checked his tablet. "The McLaren checked in here 90 minutes ago. He's flying, averaged 130 between checkpoints." 130? That was insane. That was criminal. That was exactly what Hassan would do. Push the car and the law to their limits and trust his family's money to fix any problems. Next checkpoint? Kansas City, then St. Louis after that. You're looking at another 6-7 hours depending on your pace. Elara got back in the car. Her body screamed for sleep. Her mind felt wrapped in cotton. But she had 600 more miles to go before the next checkpoint, and the leaders weren't slowing down. She merged onto I-80, pointed the Charger east, and pressed the accelerator to the floor. The afternoon became a blur. Iowa passed in a haze of cornfields and small towns and the constant fear of police. She saw 3 patrol cars, but none pursued. Victoria's influence or simple luck, she couldn't tell. Her phone, Adrian's burner, not Victoria's, rang around hour 12. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of her. "Yeah? You're in Iowa." Adrian's voice, tight with something. "How are you holding up? How are you tracking me? I told you I have people everywhere. One of them saw you pass through Omaha." A pause. "You look exhausted. You need to rest." "I need to win." "You need to survive. Elara, you've been driving for 12 hours straight. You're going to make a mistake." "I'm fine." "You're not. I can hear it in your voice. Pull over. Sleep for 3 hours. You'll make up the time by not crashing." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to stop interfering. But he wasn't wrong. The road was starting to swim, curves appearing where there shouldn't be curves. "There's a motel in Des Moines," Adrian continued. "Small place, discreet. The owner owes me a favor. Rooms already paid for under a fake name. Just pull over. Rest, please." "If I stop, I lose." "If you crash, you lose everything." His voice softened. 3 hours. That's all I'm asking. The leaders will have to rest eventually, too. Hassan's human, despite what he thinks. Yuki's good, but she'll need to sleep. You're not as far behind as you think. Elara's hands were shaking on the wheel. Not from adrenaline this time, from exhaustion. "Fine," she said finally. 3 hours. Then I'm gone. "Thank you." She hung up and followed the GPS to the motel, a rundown place off the highway with a flickering neon sign and doors that opened to the parking lot. The room was small, clean enough, with a bed that felt like heaven when she collapsed onto it. She set an alarm for 3 hours, closed her eyes, opened them what felt like seconds later to the alarm screaming and sunlight gone, replaced by darkness again. She'd lost 3 hours. 3 hours while the leaders extended their gap. 3 hours she'd never get back. But when she stood, her mind was clearer, her hands steady. Her body still hurt, but the bone-deep exhaustion had faded to something manageable. She texted Adrian, "Thanks, I'm back on the road." His response came immediately, "Be careful. I love you." She didn't reply to that, just got in the Charger and drove. Kansas City at midnight, St. Louis at 4 a.m. The checkpoints kept coming and her position stayed the same, 6th place now, after someone in the Audi had crashed outside Kansas City. Walked away, apparently, but the car was done. 5 drivers ahead of her, Yuki, Hassan, the Tesla driver, the Porsche, and someone in a Corvette who was driving like they had a death wish. 3,000 miles had become 2,000, then 1,500. The finish line in Miami got closer with every mile, but so did the danger. Fatigue made mistakes. Mistakes caused crashes. Crashes meant losing everything. She was somewhere in Tennessee when her phone buzzed with a call from Victoria's number. Mrs. Vale? Victoria's voice, amused. Still alive? I'm impressed. What do you want? What do? Just checking in. You're in 6th place. Respectable. Better than I expected. Background noise on Victoria's end, voices, music. She was at a party while her drivers risked their lives. The McLaren and GTR are having quite the battle for first. They've been trading positions for the last 300 miles. Very entertaining. Glad you're enjoying yourself.
Oh, I am, but I'm calling with a warning. There's been an incident. The driver in the Tesla tried to run the Corvette off the road outside Nashville. Both cars crashed. Tesla driver's dead. Corvette driver's in custody. Police are very interested suddenly. Elara's hands tightened on the wheel. That leaves 6 of us. 7, actually. The Porsche's still running. But yes, the field is thinning, which means law enforcement is taking notice. They figured out something's happening. They don't know what yet, but they're looking. Be careful, Mrs. Vale. I'd hate to lose my investment. I'm not your investment, Victoria laughed. Of course you are. You're all investments. Some pay off, some don't. That's business. She hung up. 2 drivers gone. 2 more families destroyed for Victoria's entertainment and profit. Elara thought about quitting. Just pulling over, calling it done, going home to face whatever life waited for her there. Then she thought about Adrian calling her a decoration, about 3 years of being someone she wasn't, about $10 million in freedom and proving that she was more than what anyone thought. She pressed the accelerator harder. Georgia arrived at dawn on the 2nd day of racing. The landscape changed. Less flat, more trees, humidity that made the air thick even at speed. She was 20 hours from leaving Tennessee, catching sleep in 2-hour bursts at rest stops, eating while driving, existing in a state that was half awake and half hallucination. The checkpoint in Atlanta confirmed what she'd suspected. She'd moved up to 4th place. Hassan and Yuki were still ahead, trading the lead. The Porsche was 3rd, then her, 400 miles to Miami. Maybe 6 hours if she pushed hard. She could win this, actually win this. If she drove harder than she'd ever driven, if luck held, if her body didn't give out, she could make it to Miami before the others and walk away with $10 million. The Charger screamed south on I-75, past signs for Florida, past toll booths where Victoria's organization had prepaid her passage, past exits that all looked the same. She was 50 miles from Miami when she saw the GTR. It was pulled over at a rest stop, hood up, Yuki standing beside it with her phone to her ear. Elara almost kept driving. Almost. But something made her slow, pull in, stop beside the broken car. Yuki looked up, surprised. Mrs. Vale. Engine? Transmission. It finally gave out. Yuki's face was exhausted, defeated. I pushed too hard for too long. Now my daughter's future dies here in a Florida rest stop. Elara should have left, should have driven away and secured her position. But she thought about what Yuki had said in Montana, about a 6-year-old girl in Tokyo who deserved better. I can look at it, Elara heard herself say. You're in a race. I'm also a mechanic. She popped the Charger's trunk and pulled out Marcus's emergency toolkit. Give me 15 minutes. It took 20. The GTR's transmission was damaged beyond roadside repair, but Elara managed to get it into a limp mode that would let the car move slowly. Not race speed, but movement. You can finish, Elara said, wiping her hands. Just take it easy. You'll limp into Miami eventually. Yuki stared at her. Why would you help me? Because your daughter deserves a future. And because I'm not Hassan al-Rashid. Elara got back in the Charger. Drive safe. She left before Yuki could respond, knowing she'd just cost herself time and position, but unable to regret it. Miami appeared on the horizon like a fever dream. High-rises and palm trees, and the smell of ocean cutting through the Charger's air conditioning. The GPS showed 10 miles to the finish line. Victoria's final checkpoint. Elara's phone buzzed. Victoria's number. Mrs. Vale, Hassan crossed the finish line 3 minutes ago. You're currently in 2nd place with the Porsche right behind you. It's going to be very close. 2nd place meant nothing. No prize, no redemption, just the knowledge that she'd driven 3,000 miles for nothing. Elara looked in the rearview mirror. The Porsche appeared, closing fast. Its driver had been holding back, saving energy for this final sprint. 5 miles to go.
The Porsche pulled alongside at a stoplight. Its driver looked over. A woman, blonde, professional. She smiled and floored it when the light changed. Elara floored it too. The Charger roared, its old V8 screaming one last time. They ran side by side through downtown Miami, weaving through traffic, ignoring lights, driving like the world was ending. 2 miles to go. The Porsche pulled ahead slightly, its modern engineering giving it an edge. Elara hit the nitrous. The Charger surged forward with violence that made her vision tunnel. She pulled ahead of the Porsche, held the lead through a curve, saw the finish line ahead. A warehouse by the docks. Victoria's Bugatti parked outside. The Charger crossed first by half a car length. Elara stood on the brakes. The car stopped. She sat there, hands still on the wheel, unable to process what had just happened. She'd finished second. Hassan had won. She'd driven 3,000 miles, risked everything, and come up short. The Porsche pulled up beside her. Its driver got out, walked over, extended a hand through the window. "Hell of a race, Keen," the woman said. Elara shook her hand numbly. "You too." Victoria appeared, looking fresh as if she'd spent the last 2 days at a spa instead of tracking an illegal cross-country race. "Mrs. Vale. Second place, better than I expected." "Hassan won." "Hassan crossed the finish line first," Victoria corrected. "There's a difference." "What?" Victoria pulled out her tablet, pulled up footage. It showed Hassan's McLaren at a checkpoint in Georgia. Showed him arguing with Victoria's people. Showed him trying to force his way through without proper confirmation. "Hassan missed a checkpoint," Victoria said. "Tried to lie about it. Thought we wouldn't notice. But we track everything, remember?" Her smile was sharp. "He's disqualified. Which makes you, Mrs. Elara Vale, the winner." The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. "I won. You won. $10 million. Congratulations." Victoria's expression was unreadable. "Honestly, I'm surprised. I bet against you. But you drove well, survived. Even helped a competitor along the way. Very noble, very stupid, very you." Elara climbed out of the Charger on legs that barely worked. Around her, the other finishers were arriving. Yuki's GTR limped in eventually. Others who'd survived the race. But she'd won. She'd actually won. Her phone rang. Adrian. She answered, "I'm in Miami." "I know, my people told me." His voice carried something she couldn't identify. "You won." "Yeah. I never doubted you would." Elara looked at the Charger. Scarred, smoking slightly, pushed beyond its limits but still running. Like her. Like everything she'd become over 3,000 impossible miles. "I'm coming home," she said. "But Adrian, when I get there, things are going to be different." "I know. No more decoration. No more cage. I'm a driver, a mechanic, myself. If you can't handle that, I can handle it. I'll handle anything if it means you come home." Elara hung up and looked at Victoria. "Transfer the money. Then we're done." "Are we?" Victoria's smile widened. "I was hoping you might be interested in future employment. You've proven yourself quite capable." "Not interested." "Pity." Victoria shrugged. "The money will be in your account within 24 hours. Pleasure doing business with you, Mrs. Vale." She walked away, leaving Elara standing beside the Charger in Miami sunshine, exhausted and victorious and completely unsure what came next. But for the first time in 3 years, she was free to figure it out. The flight back north felt surreal. Elara sat in first class this time. Victoria had upgraded her ticket as some kind of twisted congratulations. But the luxury felt wrong. The leather seat was too soft. The champagne they offered tasted like guilt. She kept thinking about the Tesla driver who died in Tennessee, about Hassan's fury when Victoria disqualified him, about Yuki limping into Miami hours after everyone else. $10 million sat in a bank account now. Her bank account. Money she'd earned by driving harder and smarter than people who'd tried to kill her for it. The woman next to her was reading a magazine, oblivious to the fact that she was sitting beside someone who'd just completed an illegal cross-country race. Elara almost laughed at the absurdity. 3 days ago, she'd been Mrs. Adrian Vale, decoration and ornament. Now she was a criminal with enough money to disappear forever if she wanted. The question was, did she want to? Her phone had 17 messages from Adrian. She'd read them on the tarmac in Miami, each one a variation of the same theme. "I'm proud of you. Come home safe. We need to talk." I love you. That last one kept catching in her throat. He'd said it before, at the race, on the phone, but it felt different now. Less like manipulation, more like truth spoken by someone who'd finally realized what they had and what they'd almost lost. The plane touched down just after midnight. Elara collected her bag and walked through the terminal in a daze, exhaustion making everything feel distant and unreal. She'd slept on the plane, but it wasn't enough. Might never be enough. Adrian was waiting at arrivals. He stood apart from the crowd, suit replaced by jeans and a t-shirt that made him look younger, more like the man who'd walked into Marcus's garage 3 years ago with blood on his collar and desperation in his voice. Their eyes met across 50 feet of airport terminal. Neither moved for a long moment. Then Elara walked toward him and Adrian met her halfway. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks. You look like you haven't slept in a week." "I haven't." His hand came up like he wanted to touch her face, then dropped. "Can I hug you, or are we not there yet?" "We're not there yet." But she was lying. The exhaustion, the victory, the sheer relief of being home and alive, it all crashed into her at once. Actually, screw it. She stepped into his arms and Adrian held her like she might disappear. His heart was beating hard enough that she could feel it through his shirt. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair, "for all of it, for calling you useless, for treating you like property, for not seeing who you really were." "I know. I watched the race. Victoria sent me footage. You were incredible." Elara pulled back to look at him. "You watched me break federal laws for 3 days, and your response is that I was incredible? Would you prefer I be angry?" "I'd prefer you be honest." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Honest? Fine. I was terrified every single mile. I had people tracking you, but I couldn't protect you, couldn't stop you from making mistakes that could have killed you. I spent 3 days watching the woman I love risk her life, and there was nothing I could do about it except pray you were as good as I suddenly realized you'd always been." "I helped Yuki." "I know. That was stupid and noble and exactly why I fell in love with you in the first place. Because you care about things beyond yourself even when it costs you." He took a breath. "Can we go somewhere and talk? Really talk? Your place or mine?" "You have a place?" "Apartment above a Vietnamese restaurant. It's small and it smells like fish sauce and it's been mine longer than the estate's been ours." Adrian looked like he'd been slapped. "You kept an apartment? For 3 years?" "I kept an escape route. Turns out I needed it." "Yeah, you did." He picked up her bag. "Your place, then. Show me where you went when I made you need to disappear." They took Adrian's car, a Mercedes sedan that was comfortable and fast and completely forgettable. He drove in silence while Elara stared out the window at the city rolling past. Her city. The one she'd left 3 years ago to play house with a crime lord who'd wanted a trophy wife. Mrs. Nguyen's restaurant was dark when they arrived, the street quiet except for distant traffic. Elara led Adrian up the exterior stairs to the apartment, suddenly self-conscious about what he'd see. She unlocked the door. The space was exactly as she'd left it, small, cluttered with tools and memories, nothing like the pristine estate where they'd lived together. Adrian stepped inside and just looked around. At the futon, the workbench, the posters of cars on the walls, the toolbox in the corner that looked older than both of them. "This is who you were," he said quietly. "Before me." "Yeah. I took all of this away from you. I let you." Elara dropped her bag by the door. "That's the thing I keep coming back to. You were controlling, but I allowed it. I made choices, bad ones. I'm as responsible as you are. You were young. You loved me. I used that. Maybe. Or maybe I was tired of struggling and you offered an easy way out." She sat on the futon, suddenly exhausted again. "I don't know, Adrian. I don't know if we can fix what we broke." He sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Tell me what you want. Not what I want. Not what would make this easier. What do you actually want?" Elara thought about it, really thought about it, past the anger and hurt and 3 years of accumulated resentment. "I want to be myself. Not your wife first and me second. Just Elara. The mechanic, the driver. The woman who can fix an engine and beat professional racers and make her own money and her own choices." "Okay, and I want you to see me that way. Not as something you own or something you protect or something you control. As an equal. A partner. Someone who's dangerous in her own right." "I do see you that way now." Now. After I had to drive 3,000 miles and nearly die to prove it. She looked at him. That's what scares me, Adrian, that you only respect me because I forced you to. What happens when things get comfortable again? Do you go back to treating me like furniture? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to promise you I won't. I've been the way I am for 20 years. Controlling, possessive. It's how I've survived in my world. But I can promise I'll try. I can promise that when I start slipping back, you can call me on it, and I'll listen this time. Will you? I watched you beat Victoria Crane. I watched you win a race that killed other drivers. You think I'm stupid enough to underestimate you again? He almost smiled. You're scarier than most of my enemies now. I'd be crazy not to listen. Despite everything, Elara felt something in her chest loosen. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. I'm keeping this apartment, she said, and I'm going back to work, real work. Marcus's garage or somewhere else, I don't care. But I'm not sitting around the estate anymore playing housewife. Agreed. And I'm keeping the 10 million. That's mine. You don't touch it. You don't have access to it. You don't get a say in how I spend it. Of course. And if you ever call me a decoration again, I'm taking the charger and disappearing so completely you'll never find me. Adrian's expression went serious. I will never call you that again. I swear on everything I've built. You're not a decoration, Elara. You're the most dangerous person I know, and I was an idiot for not seeing it sooner. You really mean that? Yeah, I really do. He ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. Look, I'm not good at this. At being vulnerable. At admitting I was wrong. But I was wrong. About you, about us. About everything I thought our marriage should be. And if you'll give me another chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've learned from it. Elara studied his face. In the apartment's dim light, Adrian looked older but somehow more real. The polished crime lord was gone, replaced by a man who'd realized too late that controlling everything meant losing what mattered most. One chance, she said finally. You get one chance to be better. We both do. And if it doesn't work, if we can't figure out how to be equals instead of owner and possession, then we walk away clean. No drama, no trying to win me back, just done. Deal. I'm serious, Adrian. So am I. He extended his hand like they were making a business arrangement. Partners, equals, no cages, no lies. Elara shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, familiar. Partners. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Adrian asked, Can I stay here tonight? I'm not asking for anything physical. I just want to be near you, to know you're safe. The futon barely fits one person. I've slept in worse places. Elara hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but you're taking the floor. I just drove 3,000 miles. I'm claiming the futon. Fair enough? She gave him a spare blanket and a pillow that smelled like motor oil. Adrian made a nest on the floor without complaining, which told her exactly how exhausted he was. Within minutes, he was asleep, his breathing deep and even. Elara lay on the futon, staring at the ceiling. Her body hurt in ways she'd forgotten bodies could hurt, but her mind was clear for the first time in years. She'd won. She'd survived. She'd earned her freedom. What she did with it next was entirely up to her. Morning came with sunlight through the window and the smell of pho from downstairs. Elara woke to find Adrian already up, looking rumpled and uncomfortable, but awake. Mrs. Nguyen knocked, he said. She says you owe her rent, and if you don't pay by tonight, she's throwing your stuff in the street. That sounds like her? Elara stretched, every muscle protesting. What time is it? Almost noon. You slept 12 hours. I drove 3,000 miles. I earned it. She stood, her legs shaky. There's a shower. Water's lukewarm at best. Towels are in the closet. While Adrian showered, Elara went downstairs. Mrs. Nguyen was in her usual spot behind the counter, chopping vegetables with quick, precise movements. Your husband slept on your floor, Mrs. Nguyen said without looking up. That's good. Means you're making him work for it. How did you? Never mind. Elara pulled out cash, real cash now, from her own money. Rent for the next year, plus extra for putting up with me. Mrs. Nguyen counted it, then nodded. You look different. Less sad. I feel different. Good. Sad is boring. Angry is better. Angry makes you do things. She resumed chopping. You want food? Please. The pho came in a bowl that could feed 3 people. Elara ate while Mrs. Nguyen worked, the familiar sounds and smells anchoring her. This place, this tiny apartment above a Vietnamese restaurant, was more home than the estate had ever been. Adrian came downstairs eventually, his hair damp, wearing yesterday's clothes. He looked out of place in the small restaurant, too polished for the cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lighting. "Mrs. Nguyen?" Elara said. "This is Adrian. Adrian, Mrs. Nguyen. She owns this building and makes the best pho in the city." Mrs. Nguyen studied Adrian with the same expression she used to evaluate meat at the market. "You're the husband who made her sad." "Yes, ma'am." "Are you going to make her sad again?" "I'm going to try very hard not to." "Try harder than that." Mrs. Nguyen pointed her knife at him. "She's a good girl, smart, tough. You don't deserve her, but maybe she keeps you anyway. Don't waste the chance." "I won't," Adrian said, and he sounded like he meant it. They ate in silence, then walked back upstairs. Adrian's phone had been buzzing constantly. His empire needed attention, apparently, but he kept ignoring it. "You should answer that," Elara said. "Your business doesn't stop existing because we're having a moment." "It can wait." "Can it? You're Adrian Vale, crime lord. You've got operations across 3 states and people who depend on you making decisions." She grabbed his phone and handed it to him. "Handle your business. I'm going to call Marcus and let him know I'm alive." Adrian took the phone reluctantly and stepped into the hallway. Elara could hear him through the thin walls, his voice shifting into the cold authority she recognized. Orders given, problems solved. The machinery of his empire turning under his control. She called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "You alive?" he asked. "Alive. I won." "I know. Victoria called me. Said you drove like the devil was chasing you and helped a competitor besides. That true?" "Yeah. Stupid move, cost you time. Yuki had a kid who needed a future. I couldn't just leave her." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Your father would have left her. Would have stepped on anyone to win. But you're not your father, are you?" "No, I'm not." "Good. Being like Tommy Vance got him killed at 35. Being like Elara Vance got you $10 million and a second chance at life." He paused. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not sitting around doing nothing. I want to work, build something, use my hands for something besides looking pretty at parties." "You can come back to the garage any time. I could use the help. Business has been good since word got out that Nix came back from the dead." "Nix is retired." "Is she?" "Because half the underground racing scene is asking when you're racing again. You're a legend now, Elara. Again. You could make serious money just showing up at events. I'll think about it." She heard Adrian wrapping up his call. "I need to go, but Marcus, thank you for everything. The training, the car. Believing I could do this when everyone else thought I was crazy." "You are crazy, but you're also the best driver I've ever seen. Don't forget that." After they hung up, Adrian came back in. He looked stressed, the calm from earlier replaced by the tension of running a criminal empire. "Problem?" Elara asked. "Several. One of my shipments got intercepted by the FBI. I've got a rival moving into territory I've held for 5 years, and someone tried to hack my accounts." He sat on the futon, rubbing his temples. "Normal Tuesday, basically." "You want my help?" He looked up, surprised. "With what?" "Your problems. You said we're partners now. Partners help each other." She sat beside him. "What do you need?" "I need—" He stopped, started again. "The rival moving into my territory is Victor Santos, Brazilian cartel. He's been testing my defenses for months, seeing where I'm weak. I've been handling it, but it's getting aggressive. So handle it more aggressively." "I can't. If I escalate, it becomes a war. Wars are expensive and messy and draw attention I don't need." Elara thought about it. "What does Santos want?" "My roots, my connections, my piece of the East Coast drug trade." "Could you give him something else? Something valuable, but not your core business?" Adrian looked at her like she'd suggested something in a foreign language. "You mean negotiate?" "I mean find out what he actually needs versus what he thinks he wants. Maybe he's moving into your territory because he needs access to something you have. Give him access without giving him control." "That's—" Adrian stopped. That might actually work. Santos has been having problems with his shipping logistics. If I offered him use of my warehouse network, he'd have what he needs without taking my territory. There you go, partner solution. She stood. Now, about that FBI shipment, what was in it? Nothing good. Weapons, mostly. The driver's in custody. He won't talk, but the FBI will leverage him eventually. Can the weapons be traced to you? Not directly, but the driver knows my organization's structure. If he flips, it's a problem. Elara walked to the window, thinking. So you need him to not flip, which means you need to either get him out or make sure he has more to fear from you than from the FBI. You're talking about threatening a man who's already in federal custody. I'm talking about reminding him why loyalty matters. His family okay? Adrian's expression shifted. I don't threaten families. I'm not suggesting you do. I'm suggesting you take care of them. Medical bills paid, rent covered, kids' school tuition handled. Make sure he knows that staying loyal means his family's protected. That's surprisingly practical. I've been married to a crime lord for 3 years. I picked up some things. She turned back to him. You're good at running an empire, Adrian, but you're so used to controlling everything through force that you forget there are other ways. Negotiation, incentive, partnership, says the woman who just won an illegal race by driving faster than everyone else. I won by being smarter. I rested when others pushed too hard. I helped Yuki and earned her respect. I used the Charger's strengths instead of pretending it was something it wasn't. She sat beside him again. Force works. But it's not the only tool. Adrian studied her face. When did you get so good at strategy? I've always been good at it. You just never asked my opinion before. She pulled out her phone. Now make your calls, fix your problems. I'm going to shower and figure out what to do with $10 million. The next few days fell into a strange routine. Elara stayed at the apartment while Adrian went back to the estate to handle business. But he came by every evening, bringing dinner and news of his empire. They talked strategy. She offered suggestions. Some he used, some he ignored, but he listened, which was more than he'd ever done before. On the 4th day, Victoria called. Mrs. Vale, she said, sounding amused as always. I trust you're enjoying your winnings. What do you want, Victoria? So suspicious. I'm calling with an opportunity. There's a collector in London who needs a rare vehicle transported from Paris. Delicate work. Requires someone with skill and discretion. I recommended you. Not interested. The job pays $500,000 for 1 day's work. You'd fly to Paris, pick up the car, drive it to a channel tunnel, deliver it to London. 8 hours, maybe 10. Easy money. If it's so easy, do it yourself. Victoria laughed. I'm not a driver anymore. I'm a businesswoman. But you, Mrs. Vale, you're the driver everyone's talking about. The woman who beat me and won the death run. You could make a fortune just moving high-value vehicles for the right clients. I'm retired. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're a woman with $10 million and no purpose. Money's wonderful, but it doesn't give you meaning. Work does. Achievement does. Being the best at something does. Elara hated that Victoria had a point. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. The collector needs the car moved by next week. After that, the opportunity passes to someone else. She hung up without saying goodbye. When Adrian came by that evening, Elara told him about Victoria's offer. His reaction was immediate. No, absolutely not. You're not working for Victoria Crane. It's one job. It's never one job with her. You do this and she'll have her hooks in you. Next thing you know, you're moving illegal cargo across borders and I'm visiting you in federal prison. Or I make $500,000 in 1 day and tell her to find someone else after that. You think it works that way? Victoria doesn't let go of assets she values. Adrian set down his takeout. You're worth more to her now than ever, the driver who won her race. The woman with a perfect record. She'll use you until you're dead or in prison, and then she'll move on to the next driver. So what am I supposed to do? Sit in this apartment counting my money until I die of boredom. You could work with Marcus, race legally, do 100 other things that don't involve Victoria Crane. Elara stood and paced the small space. You don't get it. I spent 3 years doing nothing, being nothing. Now I've got skills and money and options, and you want me to just ignore opportunities because they're dangerous? I want you alive and free, not dead or in prison. That's not your call anymore. We're partners, remember? Which means you don't get to control what I do. Adrian's jaw tightened. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From making my own choices? From taking risks? That's exactly what you did before, Adrian. You decided what was best for me without asking what I wanted. This is different. Is it? Because it sounds exactly the same. You're just using safety as an excuse instead of propriety. She grabbed her jacket. I need air. Elara. But she was already out the door, down the stairs, walking into the night without a destination. The anger felt good, familiar. It reminded her that she wasn't the woman who'd stood silently at parties anymore. She was someone who fought back. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. You okay? He asked. Adrian just called, said you two had a fight. He told you that? He's worried, asked me to make sure you're safe, which is either sweet or controlling depending on how you look at it. Elara laughed bitterly. That's the problem, isn't it? I can't tell anymore where concern ends and control begins. You want my take? Please? Adrian loves you, but he's also a criminal who survived 20 years by controlling everything around him. Those two things are going to clash. The question is whether he can learn to love you without trying to control you, and whether you can let him worry about you without seeing it as an attempt to cage you again. So what do I do? Hell if I know. I'm a mechanic, not a therapist. She heard him moving around the garage, tools clanking. But I know this. You're not happy sitting still. You need to drive, to build, to do something with those hands besides count money. Whether that's working for Victoria or racing legally or building cars in my garage, you need purpose. Adrian needs to accept that. And you need to accept that him worrying doesn't automatically mean he's trying to control you. After they hung up, Elara walked for another hour. The city at night was beautiful in its way. Neon and shadows and the hum of life happening in every building she passed. She'd missed this. The realness of it. The energy. She found herself at the docks where she'd first raced Victoria. The place was empty now, just concrete and darkness and the smell of the river. But she could still hear the engines in her memory, still feel the adrenaline of crossing the finish line first. Her phone rang again. Adrian. I'm sorry, he said before she could speak. You're right. I was trying to control you again. When Victoria called, all I could think about was you dead in a crash or arrested at a border crossing. It scared me, and I reacted badly. Yeah, you did. If you want to take Victoria's job, take it. If you want to work for her permanently, do that. I'll support whatever you decide, even if it terrifies me. Elara sat on the edge of the dock, feet dangling over the water. I don't know what I want yet, but I need you to trust that when I figure it out, I'll make smart choices. Not reckless ones. Smart ones that balance risk with reward. I know you will. You always have. I was just too stupid to see it before. Yeah, you were. She paused. Come pick me up? I'm at the racing docks. I'll text you the address. On my way. 20 minutes later, Adrian's Mercedes pulled up. Elara climbed in and they drove in silence for a while. Finally, Adrian said, I talked to Victor Santos, offered him access to my warehouse network like you suggested. He accepted. The territory dispute is over. That's good. And I set up a trust for my driver's family, anonymous payments for as long as he stays quiet. His lawyer says he's not cooperating with the FBI anymore. Also good. You were right. About negotiation. About finding solutions that don't involve force. He glanced at her. I need you, Elara. Not just as my wife. As a partner. You see angles I miss. You think differently than I do. My empire would benefit from having someone like you involved. Someone like me. Someone smarter than me. Someone who's not afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. Someone I trust completely. He pulled over and turned to face her. I'm offering you a real partnership, not just in our marriage, in my business, if you want it. Elara stared at him. You want me to help run your criminal empire. I want you to help me transform it into something sustainable, something that doesn't require constant violence to maintain. You've already proven you can think strategically. I need that, and it would give you the purpose you're looking for without having to work for Victoria. She didn't know what that was. Unexpected, dangerous, exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been craving. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. The offer stands whenever you're ready. They drove back to the apartment in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not tense, just thoughtful. Full of possibility. When they arrived, Elara turned to Adrian before getting out. I'm not saying yes yet, but I'm not saying no either. Give me a week to think about it. Deal.
And Adrian, if I do this, if I become your partner in business, things are going to change. I'm not going to run your empire the way you've been running it. There will be less violence, more strategy, different priorities. I know, that's exactly why I want you. Elara got out of the car, but before she closed the door, she leaned back in. For what it's worth, I think we might actually be able to make this work. You and me. Partners and everything.
Adrian smiled. It was real and unguarded and full of hope. Yeah, I think we might. She watched him drive away, then climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, she looked around at the small space that had been her refuge, her secret, her anchor to who she used to be. Tomorrow she'd call Victoria and turn down the London job. Not because Adrian wanted her to, but because she had a better offer, a real partnership, a chance to build something with someone who finally saw her as an equal. She'd spent 3 years as a decoration, 3 days proving she was more than that. Now she had the chance to become something else entirely. A strategist, a partner, a woman who could navigate both the underground racing world and the criminal empire with equal skill. The future was uncertain, dangerous, full of complications she couldn't begin to predict. But for the first time in 3 years, it was hers to shape. And that was worth more than all the money Victoria Crane could ever offer. The week Elara took to think about Adrian's offer turned into 3 weeks of carefully examining what partnership would actually mean. Not the romantic notion of it, but the reality. She spent hours at Marcus's garage working on engines and thinking through scenarios. What happened when Adrian made a decision she disagreed with? What happened when their strategies clashed? What happened when being partners in business bled into being partners in life, and she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began? On a Thursday morning, while she was elbow-deep in a transmission rebuild, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Elara Vance? A woman's voice, professional and cold. Who's asking? Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. I'd like to talk to you about Victoria Crane and a cross-country race you participated in 3 weeks ago. Elara's blood went cold. She wiped her hands on a rag, buying time. I don't know what you're talking about. Mrs. Vale, we have satellite footage. We have testimony from drivers who were arrested. We have financial records showing a $10 million transfer to your account from one of Victoria Crane's shell companies. Agent Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. You can talk to me now voluntarily, or I can get a warrant and we can do this the hard way. Your choice. I want a lawyer. Smart! Here's my card. A text came through with contact information. Have your lawyer call me. But Mrs. Vale, Victoria Crane is going down. The only question is whether you go down with her. Think about that. The line went dead. Elara stood in Marcus's garage, hands shaking, the weight of federal investigation crashing down on her. She'd known the race was illegal, had known there would be consequences if she got caught, but knowing it abstractly and facing actual FBI attention were two very different things. She called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. The FBI just contacted me, she said without preamble. About Victoria's race, they know everything. Silence. Then, where are you? Marcus's garage. Stay there, I'm sending someone. Don't talk to anyone else. Don't answer your phone, just wait. Adrian, trust me, please. 20 minutes later, a woman in an expensive suit walked into the garage. She was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that commanded attention. Mrs. Vale, I'm Rebecca Thornton. Mr. Vale retained me to represent you. Let's talk somewhere private. They ended up in Marcus's office, a cluttered room that smelled like coffee and engine oil. Rebecca pulled out a legal pad and a recorder. Tell me everything, she said. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out. So Elara told her. About Victoria's challenge. About the race. About winning and the money and every detail she could remember. Rebecca listened without interrupting, taking notes in shorthand that looked like code. When Elara finished, Rebecca set down her pen. Okay, here's the situation. The FBI has been building a case against Victoria Crane for 2 years. The race was part of a larger investigation into her criminal enterprise. They're using the drivers as pressure points, offering reduced sentences or immunity in exchange for testimony against Victoria. What do I do? You have options. Option 1. Cooperate fully. Tell them everything. Testify against Victoria if it comes to trial. In exchange, they'll probably offer you immunity from prosecution. You walk away clean, but you become a witness in a major federal case, which comes with its own dangers. What's option 2? Option 2. We fight. Challenge their evidence. Argue that you were coerced into participating. Make them prove every element of their case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's riskier, but if we win, you don't have to testify against anyone. And option 3? Rebecca smiled slightly. Option 3 is why Adrian Vale pays me very well. We negotiate. You offer them something they want more than your testimony. Information on Victoria's organization that helps their case without requiring you to be a cooperating witness. You give them enough to sweeten their case while maintaining plausible deniability about your own involvement. That sounds like walking a very thin line. It is. But it's doable if you're smart about it. And from what Adrian's told me, you're very smart. Elara thought about it. Testifying against Victoria meant looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. Victoria Crane didn't forgive betrayal, but fighting the charges meant risking conviction, which could mean years in federal prison. How long do I have to decide? Agent Chen will push for a meeting within the next few days. After that, they might move forward with charges if they think you're not cooperating. Rebecca pulled out a business card. My advice? Talk to Adrian. Think about what matters most to you. Then we'll figure out the best strategy. After Rebecca left, Elara sat in Marcus's office for a long time. The old man appeared in the doorway eventually, holding 2 mugs of coffee. FBI trouble, he said, handing her a mug. How'd you know? That lawyer's reputation precedes her. She only shows up when the feds are involved. Marcus sat down heavily. You knew this could happen. Knowing it and facing it are different things. Yeah, they are. He sipped his coffee. What are you going to do? I don't know. All 3 options are terrible in different ways. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Your father got arrested once. Did I ever tell you that? No? He was 25. Reckless as hell. Got caught running drugs across state lines in a modified Camaro. The cops offered him a deal, testify against the people who hired him and walk away with probation. What did he do? He told them to go to hell. Spent 2 years in prison rather than become a snitch. Marcus's expression was complicated. When he got out, the underground racing scene treated him like a hero. Tommy Vance, the man who didn't break. He wore it like a badge of honor right up until the day he wrapped that car around a bridge support. You're saying I shouldn't cooperate. I'm saying your father made choices based on pride and reputation, and it got him killed. You're smarter than that. You make choices based on what actually matters, not what looks good to people who don't give a damn about you. He met her eyes. Do what keeps you alive and free. Everything else is just noise. When Adrian came by the apartment that evening, Elara had made her decision. I'm going to negotiate, she told him. Rebecca's option 3. Give them information without becoming a witness. That's risky. So is everything else. But this way, I help put Victoria away without painting a target on my back. And I don't have to spend years fighting federal charges. She looked at him. Unless you think I should do something different, I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. But Elara, if you give the FBI information on Victoria, you need to be prepared for her to find out eventually. She has people everywhere. If she discovers you cooperated, even partially, she'll come after you. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. We'll deal with it. Together. Adrian sat beside her. I've already talked to my security people. We can have protection on you 24/7 if needed, safe houses, new identity if it comes to that, whatever you need. I don't want to live in hiding. You won't have to. Victoria's organization is collapsing. The FBI's case is strong. She'll be in federal custody within months, and once she's convicted, her influence dies with her sentence. Elara wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that giving the FBI information would be the end of it, but she'd learned the hard way that nothing was ever that simple. The meeting with Agent Chen happened in a federal building downtown, in a conference room that was aggressively bland. Rebecca sat beside Elara, while Agent Chen and her partner, a man named Rodriguez, sat across from them. Thank you for coming in voluntarily, Mrs. Vale, Agent Chen said, opening a file. Let's talk about Victoria Crane. For the next 3 hours, Elara told them everything she knew, not about her own participation in the race. Rebecca had been clear that admitting guilt was off the table, but about Victoria's organization. the logistics, the money laundering, the way Victoria used races to distract law enforcement while moving product, names of people Elara had met, locations she'd seen, details that individually meant little but collectively painted a picture of criminal enterprise. Agent Chen took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Elara finished, the agent sat back and exchanged a glance with her partner. "This is good information," Agent Chen said finally. "Some of it confirms what we already suspected. Some of it opens new avenues for investigation. But Mrs. Vale, I need to be clear, this doesn't give you immunity. We're still deciding whether to bring charges against you for participating in the race." "My client has cooperated fully," Rebecca said smoothly. "She's provided valuable information at considerable personal risk. The U.S. Attorney's Office typically looks favorably on such cooperation when making charging decisions." "We'll take it under advisement." Agent Chen closed her file. "Mrs. Vale, don't leave the state without notifying us. We'll be in touch." Outside the federal building, Elara breathed cold air and felt like she'd just survived something. Rebecca put a hand on her shoulder. "You did well. Gave them enough to be useful without incriminating yourself. Now we wait and see if they decide you're worth prosecuting. And if they do, then we fight. But I don't think they will. They've got bigger fish to fry, and you gave them ammunition to catch those fish." Adrian was waiting in his car down the block. Elara climbed in and he pulled away from the curb without asking how it went. He could probably tell from her face. "It's done," she said. "For now." "Good." He drove in silence for a moment. "I have something to show you, if you're up for it." "Show me what?" "A surprise. Trust me." She studied his face. The tension from earlier weeks had eased. He looked more like the man she'd fallen in love with than the crime lord who'd tried to cage her. "Yeah, I trust you." They drove to the industrial district, to a warehouse Elara didn't recognize. Adrian parked and led her inside. The space was massive, easily 20,000 square feet, and completely empty except for one thing in the center, the Charger. Her Charger. The car that had carried her 3,000 miles and back to herself. But it wasn't alone. Around it sat tools, equipment, hydraulic lifts, diagnostic machines, everything needed for a professional garage. "What is this?" Elara asked. "This is yours, if you want it." Adrian's hands were in his pockets, nervous in a way she'd rarely seen. "I know you've been working at Marcus's place, but I thought maybe you'd want your own garage, space to build things, fix things, train other drivers if you want, whatever you decide to do with it." Elara walked through the space, her footsteps echoing. The building was perfect. High ceilings, good lighting, close enough to the main roads for easy access. The equipment was top of the line, professional grade. "This must have cost a fortune," she said. "The building was one of my properties. I had it sitting empty. The equipment I sourced from various places. And before you ask, no, I'm not trying to control what you do with it. This is yours. Your name on the deed. Your business to run however you see fit. I'm just providing the space." She turned to look at him. "Why?" "Because you need purpose. You need to build things. And because I've spent 3 years trying to shape you into what I wanted instead of supporting who you actually are. This is me trying to do better." Elara felt something in her chest crack open. Not breaking, expanding, making room for possibility. "I don't forgive you yet," she said quietly. "For the 3 years, for calling me useless, for all of it. I know. But this," she gestured at the garage, "this is a start, a real start." Adrian nodded. "That's all I'm asking for. A chance to prove I've learned. To be the partner you deserve, instead of the jailer I was." They stood in the empty garage, sunlight streaming through high windows, dust motes dancing in the air. Elara walked to the Charger and ran her hand along its hood, the car that had saved her, that had reminded her who she was. "I'll take it," she said. "The garage, but on one condition." "Name it." "I want to train drivers, women mostly, girls who grew up like I did, working on cars, dreaming about racing, but who don't have access or opportunity or anyone who believes in them. I want to give them what Marcus gave me. Done. Whatever you need, funding, connections, resources, it's yours. And I want to think more about your other offer, being your partner in business. I'm not saying yes yet, but I'm not saying no either." Adrian smiled. "Fair enough. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready." Over the next month, Elara threw herself into building something new. She hired a small staff, mechanics she trusted, people Marcus recommended. She reached out to community centers and schools, offering free training programs for young women interested in automotive work. The response was overwhelming. The FBI called once more, 3 weeks after her cooperation session. Agent Chen's voice was almost warm. Mrs. Vale, I'm calling to inform you that the U.S. Attorney has declined to pursue charges against you related to the Victoria Crane investigation. Your cooperation was noted as a factor in that decision. Relief flooded through her. Thank you. Thank your lawyer. She's very good at what she does. A pause. And Mrs. Vale, Victoria Crane was arrested this morning. Multiple counts including racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. She's looking at 20 years minimum. You can stop looking over your shoulder. After they hung up, Elara sat in her new office, a small room off the main garage floor, and let herself feel it. Freedom. Real freedom. Not just from Adrian's cage, but from Victoria's shadow. From the FBI's scrutiny. From all the forces that had tried to define who she should be. She called Adrian. Victoria's arrested. FBI's dropped any investigation into me. We're clear. I heard. My lawyers called an hour ago. His voice carried genuine relief. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe. She looked out at the garage floor where 3 young women were working on an engine, their hands confident and capable. Like maybe everything that happened was worth it to get here. Was it? Worth it? Elara thought about the question. About 3 years of suffocation. About driving 3,000 miles to remember who she was. About nearly dying and nearly going to prison and all the pain between leaving and coming back. Yeah, she said finally, it was. Because I'm not the woman who married you anymore. I'm not even the woman who ran from you. I'm someone new, someone better, and I wouldn't have become her without all of it, the bad and the good. I'm glad, even though it makes me look pretty terrible in the story. You were terrible in the story, but people can change. You're changing. That matters. That evening, Adrian came by the garage. Elara was closing up, checking that all the tools were secured, the lifts were down, the doors were locked. He leaned against the charger and watched her work. I made a decision, he said when she finished. About what? My business. I'm getting out of the drug trade, moving into legitimate enterprises exclusively. It's going to take time. You don't just walk away from that world, but I'm done with it. Elara stopped what she was doing. What changed your mind? You did. Watching you build this place. Seeing you help those girls. Realizing that there are better ways to make money and have power than dealing drugs and threatening people. He pushed off the charger. I want to build something that doesn't require violence to maintain. And I can't do that while I'm still in the business I'm in. That's dangerous. Walking away. People won't let you go easily. I know. But I've got advantages they don't. Money. Connections. And a partner who's smarter than I am and can help me navigate the transition. Is that partner me? If you'll say yes. Elara walked toward him, closing the distance between them. For the first time in months, she let herself really look at Adrian not as the man who'd caged her or the crime lord who'd underestimated her, but as the flawed human being who'd made terrible choices and was genuinely trying to do better. I'll say yes, she said. On my terms. We're equals. In business and in life. You don't control me, I don't fix you, we just help each other be better versions of ourselves. Deal? Deal. He extended his hand and she shook it, their grip firm and sure. Then she pulled him into a kiss that was 3 years overdue. Not the polished kisses of their early marriage when everything was performance. A real kiss. Hungry and honest and full of all the complicated feelings that came with loving someone who'd hurt you and choosing to build something new anyway. When they broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I love you. I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it differently now. I'm not in love with who I thought you should be. I'm in love with who you actually are. Took you long enough to figure that out. Yeah, it did. They stood in the garage surrounded by tools and cars and the future Elara was building, and for the first time in 3 years, everything felt right. Not perfect. Nothing was ever perfect. But right in the way that messy, complicated, real things are right. The next morning, Elara woke up in the apartment above Mrs. Nguyen's restaurant. Adrian was still asleep on what had become his side of the futon. They'd been spending more nights here than at the estate. The space was small and cramped, but it was honest in a way the mansion had never been. Her phone buzzed, a text from Yuki Tanaka. "I'm in your city for business. Coffee?" They met at a diner near the docks. Yuki looked different from the exhausted racer in Florida, rested, her purple hair freshly dyed, wearing clothes that suggested she'd come into money. "You helped me finish," Yuki said after they ordered. "I came in 8th, dead last. But Victoria still paid me something for completing the course, enough to pay for my daughter's school for 3 years." "That's good." "It is. But I wanted to thank you in person. You didn't have to stop. You cost yourself time and position to help a competitor." Yuki pulled out an envelope. "This is $5,000. It's what I can afford right now. I know it's not much compared to what you won, but—" "Keep it," Elara interrupted. "Use it for your daughter, for her future. That's payment enough." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Just promise me something." "What?" "Teach your daughter to be strong, to fight for what she wants, to never let anyone make her into something she's not." Yuki smiled. "I promise. She's already strong. 6 years old, and she tells me she's going to be a race car driver like her mother. I tell her she can be whatever she wants as long as she's brave enough to chase it." They talked for another hour, two women who'd driven impossible distances and survived to tell about it. When they parted ways, Elara felt something settle in her chest. Connection, understanding, the knowledge that she wasn't alone in being a woman who refused to be caged. Back at the garage, Elara's phone rang. Marcus. "Turn on the news," he said without preamble. She pulled up a news site on her phone. The headline made her breath catch. Underground racing kingpin. Victoria Crane indicted on federal charges. The article detailed Victoria's arrest, the scope of her criminal enterprise, the testimony from various drivers and associates. Elara's name wasn't mentioned. Rebecca had ensured her cooperation remained sealed, but she recognized details she'd provided woven throughout the case. "They're saying 25 years minimum," Marcus said. "Maybe life if they can prove the murder conspiracy charges." "Good. You did that. Your information helped build the case." "I just told the truth." "Sometimes that's enough." Marcus paused. "You coming by the garage today? I've got that Mustang rebuild I could use help on." "Can't. I've got 3 students coming in, teaching them about transmission work." "Look at you, teacher now." "Someone taught me once. Figure I should pay it forward." After they hung up, Elara stood in her office looking out at the garage floor. In a few hours, young women would arrive. Girls who loved cars and speed and the feeling of building something with their own hands. She'd teach them everything Marcus taught her. How to read an engine, how to feel what a car needed, how to be fearless without being reckless. Adrian appeared in the doorway. "Hey, you ready for our meeting?" "What meeting?" "With my lawyers and accountants. We're officially starting the transition out of the drug trade and into legitimate business. I need my partner there." Partner. The word still felt strange, but good. "Give me 5 minutes," she said. The meeting was exactly as boring as Elara expected. Spreadsheets and projections and legal terminology that made her head hurt. But she sat through it, asking questions when things didn't make sense, offering suggestions when she saw inefficiencies. Afterward, Adrian's accountant pulled her aside. "You're good at this. Mr. Vale's been running his operation the same way for 20 years. In one meeting, you identified 3 cost savings he's been missing. I'm just looking at it differently. Different is what he needs. Keep doing what you're doing." Over the next 6 months, Elara settled into her new life. The garage flourished. She trained 15 young women in automotive work, and 3 of them went on to professional racing careers. Her partnership with Adrian evolved from tentative to solid. They argued sometimes, disagreed on strategy, but they solved problems together instead of him issuing orders and expecting obedience. The transition out of the drug trade was messy and dangerous. 2 of Adrian's former associates tried to kill him for walking away. Elara was there when it happened, in his office going over quarterly reports, when gunmen burst through the door. Training from 3,000 miles of high-speed driving kicked in. She grabbed Adrian, shoved him behind the desk, and hit the panic button that summoned security. Then she grabbed the gun Adrian kept in his drawer. She'd learned to shoot in the months since Miami, another skill she'd acquired, and fired twice at the intruders. One went down, the other retreated. Security arrived within seconds. When it was over, when the would-be assassins were in custody and the adrenaline faded, Adrian looked at her with something between fear and awe. "You saved my life." "Yeah, you're welcome." "I mean it. You could have run, could have hidden. You stayed and fought. That's what partners do. They fight together." He pulled her into an embrace that was desperate and grateful and full of love that had been tested and survived. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." The assassination attempt made headlines. Crime lord Adrian Vale survives hit. The attention was unwelcome, but it had an unexpected benefit. Other criminals thinking about targeting Adrian during his transition thought twice. His wife had shot an armed intruder without hesitation. The woman was clearly as dangerous as he was. Elara found that amusing. 3 years ago, she'd been a decoration. Now she was a threat. Funny how things changed.
A year after the race, on the anniversary of her victory, Marcus threw a party at his garage. It was small, just the people who mattered. Marcus and his crew, a few of Elara's students, Adrian, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Even Yuki had flown in from Tokyo, bringing her daughter, who was indeed obsessed with race cars.
They stood around the charger, drinking beer and telling stories. Someone asked Elara to talk about the death run, and she demurred. It felt like ancient history now, a different person's story. But later, when most people had left and it was just her and Marcus and Adrian, Marcus asked the question that mattered. "Was it worth it? Everything you went through, everything you risked, was it worth it to get here?" Elara looked around the garage, Marcus's garage, where everything had started, where she'd been just a mechanic with dreams of racing, where Adrian had walked in and changed everything, where she'd returned after nearly losing herself completely. "Yeah," she said finally. "It was worth it, because I learned something important." "What's that?" Adrian asked. "That you can't build a life on someone else's terms. You can't be who they want you to be and expect to be happy. You have to be willing to drive away from everything, even the people you love, if they're asking you to be less than who you are." She looked at Adrian. "And you have to be willing to let the people you love be more than you thought they could be. To give them space to be dangerous and wild and completely themselves." "Wise words," Marcus said. "Your father never learned that. He spent his whole life chasing speed and never stopped to ask what he was running from or toward. But you're different. You ran toward yourself. And you brought someone with you who was willing to change." Adrian took Elara's hand. "For the record, I'm still changing, still learning, still trying to be worthy of the second chance you gave me." "I know. That's why it's working." They left the party together, walking to Adrian's car under streetlights that turned the city golden. It wasn't the estate they were heading to. They'd sold that place months ago, too many bad memories trapped in its walls. Instead, they'd bought a house near Elara's garage, something smaller, warmer. A home instead of a showcase. 5 years later, Elara stood in her garage watching a young woman named Sophia work on an engine rebuild. The girl was 19, all raw talent and hunger, exactly like Elara had been at that age. "You're rushing," Elara said gently. "Slow down. Feel what the engine needs." Sophia adjusted her approach, and the work improved immediately. Elara smiled. She'd trained 50 women now through her program. Some had gone into professional racing. Some worked as mechanics. Some had used the skills to build other careers. All of them had learned the same lesson, that they were capable of more than the world told them they were. Adrian appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee. He'd gone fully legitimate now, his criminal empire dismantled and rebuilt as a network of legal businesses. Real estate, import-export, security consulting for companies that needed protection without violence. It was less lucrative than the drug trade, but infinitely more sustainable. "Sophia's getting good," he observed, handing Elara coffee. "She is. Another month, and she'll be ready to compete in the amateur circuit." "You're proud of her." "Yeah, I am." Elara sipped her coffee. "She reminds me of me, before everything, when it was just cars and speed and the belief that I could do anything." "You still can do anything. I know, but now I choose to do things that matter. Teaching, building, helping other women find their strength." She looked at him. "Thank you for that. For giving me the space to figure out who I wanted to be. You didn't need my permission. You were always going to become this person. I was just smart enough to stop getting in your way." They stood together watching Sophia work, Two people who'd almost destroyed each other, learning instead to build something neither could have created alone. It wasn't perfect. They still argued, still had days when old patterns tried to resurface. But they'd learned to recognize those patterns and break them before they caused damage. The Charger sat in the corner of the garage, retired now, but honored. Elara had replaced it with newer vehicles, but she'd never sell that car. It represented too much. The night she drove away from Adrian's control, the 3,000 miles that reminded her who she was. The finish line in Miami where she proved she was more than anyone thought. Her phone buzzed, a text from Victoria Crane's lawyer. "My client would like to speak with you. She's willing to provide information on her remaining operations in exchange for a meeting. Interested?" Elara deleted the text without responding. She owed Victoria nothing. The woman had tried to use her as a pawn in entertainment. She was exactly where she deserved to be. Federal prison, serving 25 years, her empire dismantled. Sometimes the best revenge was simply living well. That evening, Elara and Adrian hosted dinner at their house. Marcus came, of course. Some of Adrian's business associates who'd survived the transition to legitimacy. A few of Elara's students. It was loud and chaotic and nothing like the silent, formal dinners at the estate. After everyone left, Elara and Adrian sat on their back porch drinking wine and watching the city lights. "Do you ever miss it?" Adrian asked. "The racing, the adrenaline, the speed." "Sometimes. But I get enough adrenaline teaching 19-year-olds to drive muscle cars without killing themselves." She smiled. "What about you? Miss the old business?" "No. That life was exhausting, constantly watching for threats, never trusting anyone completely, always ready for violence." He took her hand. "This is better. Harder in some ways, but better. Even though you're married to a woman who shot an intruder, especially because I'm married to a woman who shot an intruder, means I've got a real partner, not someone I have to protect, someone who protects herself and me when needed." Elara leaned her head on his shoulder. "We turned out okay, didn't we? Despite everything." "Yeah, we did." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elara said, "I've been thinking about expanding the training program, opening a second location, maybe even developing a racing team. All women, all drivers from underserved communities. Show the world what's possible when you give talented people a chance." "How much funding would you need?" "A lot. More than I want to spend from my own money. I'd need investors, partners, people who believe in what I'm building." "Count me in, whatever you need. I believe in what you're building because I believe in you." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You've proven you know what you're doing. I'd be stupid not to invest." He kissed her temple. "Besides, I like being married to someone who's building an empire. Makes my legitimate business look boring by comparison." Elara laughed. "Your business is boring compared to mine." "True, but I'm okay with that." 3 more years passed. Elara's racing program expanded to 5 cities. She'd trained over 200 women. 3 of them were now professional drivers competing at the highest levels. One had won a major championship, crediting Elara's training with her success. Adrian's legitimate empire was thriving. He'd fully separated from his criminal past, though the reputation lingered, useful for negotiations, problematic for public relations. Together, they'd built something rare in their world, a partnership based on equality and respect, and the understanding that they were both dangerous in their own ways. On their 8th anniversary, 8 years since that disastrous party where Elara had overheard Adrian calling her useless, they returned to the docks where she'd first raced Victoria. The place looked different now, cleaned up, less forgotten by the city, but the memories remained. "Do you remember that night?" Adrian asked. "Every second of it, standing in your study listening to you tell Marcus I was decoration, useless, good for nothing except looking pretty at your side." "I was an idiot." "Yeah, you were." She walked to the spot where she'd finished the race, where she'd beaten Victoria and started the chain of events that led to everything else. "But you learned. We both did. We learned that loving someone means letting them be whole, not breaking them down to fit what you want. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Not the money or the success or any of it. Just learning to love someone as they actually are." "Yeah, that's it." They stood at the docks as sunset painted the sky orange and gold. 2 people who'd almost destroyed each other learning instead to build something that honored who they both were. It was messy and complicated and sometimes difficult, But it was real. And real was worth more than all the polished perfection Adrian had tried to create 8 years ago. Elara's phone buzzed. One of her students asking for advice about an upcoming race. She typed a quick response, then looked at Adrian.
Ready to go home?
Yeah, let's go home.
They drove through the city together, past the Vietnamese restaurant where Elara's apartment still sat above Mrs. Nguyen's place. They kept it as a reminder of where they'd been. Past Marcus's garage where it had all started. Past the warehouse that had become Elara's empire of teaching and building and proving that women could be just as dangerous behind the wheel as any man.
Home was waiting. Not a mansion, not a cage. Just a house full of life and mess and the kind of love that survived because it was built on truth instead of control. And if sometimes Elara woke up and remembered the feeling of the Charger's engine screaming as she crossed the finish line in Miami, if sometimes she missed the pure adrenaline of racing for her life, well, that was okay. Because she'd learned something more important than speed. She'd learned that the fastest way to lose yourself was to become what someone else wanted. And the only way back was to drive away from everything familiar until you remembered who you'd been before anyone tried to change you. She'd driven 3,000 miles to learn that lesson. But it had been worth every dangerous, illegal, beautiful mile. Because on the other side of it, she'd found herself. And found a partner who finally understood that the woman beside him wasn't decoration or possession or anything except exactly who she chose to be. Dangerous, skilled, free. And that was worth more than any prize Victoria Crane could have offered.